Oh,
So
And-
I want to make sure that I'm
You can
muted.
shut him off from there too.
John.
Well, why is it not muting up?
Does he not have a little mute thing down there?
Usually, you have them. That's weird. Interesting. That's not an option available for you, John. For some reason. Muting you is not an option.
Can you do F2? Isn't it on your computer if F2 is a mute?
I did do my mute on the computer, but I wasn't able to do it on the Zoom screen. F1 on my computer, but see, all I've got is this little stupid thing down here now.
I would almost suggest logging out and logging back in.
I don't think anybody's hearing me now because I got my microphone turned
Okay.
off and everything. So
Okay.
unless we're getting an echo or a feedback,
All right.
in which case if we do, I'll just log off. But, okay, we have a minute and a half to go.
So we've been doing this for a time.
Oh, you know. Oh, sorry about that, John. When I was talking to you yesterday,
Mhm.
I looked at my phone. I had 15% battery left.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, dead. And then when I plug it back into my charger in my car, wouldn't restart. Got it home, plugged it into my charger at home, wouldn't restart. So like,
Like it didn't count or
either my phone
something.
had permanently died, or I don't know what the deal is. So left it plugged in, went down to the barn, went over to my parents' house, came back, and it was powered back on, and it was 75%, 80% charged, and it worked. So anyway, I don't have any idea what that was, other than
It'll abandon you at the least opportunity. I figured, I didn't know
I've been
if
blaming.
you'd gone around behind the barn or
No, I've
something.
been blaming Verizon all week because I keep dropping calls out of nowhere. Or I
There
miss
are
like,
times that it,
I miss like 10 or 15 seconds. It won't drop the call, but I'll be talking to someone. And all of a sudden,
It'll happen when you're talking because then you don't notice it.
well, yeah. Well, there are other times where someone else is talking and I have to ask them to repeat like the last
Mhm.
15 seconds of what they said.
but I
Okay,
think people understand because it happens to everybody.
it's 10 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Yeah, so let me know when you're all set. Okay, we've called the meeting to order. Gene, I'd ask you to do the honors today, please.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you watch over us while we go about the county business day. We ask you to watch over our residents and our employees, and that everything we do in this meeting be to the benefit of the county. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bothell,
Present?
Commissioner Noster,
Present.
Commissioner Kleber.
Here. Okay, adoption of the agenda. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the agenda?
On the agenda, it had approval of minutes from the previous meeting, but it didn't say which one. And it would be from July 12th.
August 12th, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. August 12th, the BOCC as well as the Board of Health meeting or minutes.
That change is noted. Are there any other changes?
I would just like to recommend specifically noting the resolution for the national popular vote, opposing the national popular vote. Oh, I see that's already on there. But there are two additional resolutions that are carryovers from the July 29th meeting, that being the resolution appointing Commissioner Glover as the managing commissioner for the maintenance department, and then also a resolution appointing Suzanne Benton as the interim administrator. And
Yes.
just so it specifies that.
And we can put those under general business and administrative items.
Sure.
Get them out of the way. Okay. Are there any other changes?
Do I have to go through the list of things that were pending that you need to just take action on and sign? Do I need to list them all right now?
Well, I don't know what all you have. We've got with the consent agenda, we have some items.
A lot of it is directions I need from you and from the board, and also some things that I want to know how you want to proceed with, like the CIC contract for termination, because we have a 90-day requirement on that. And we need to get
So we have a 90-day notification. requirement.
notification, and so I don't know if you want it, if you need to have that. A lot of this is some of the carryover from Ryan on the, I don't know if the all hazards MOU is done or not. Title transfer authorization, and just some verification that certain things were gonna be.
Can we do that under commissioners administrative updates?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's where
you
I
got-
put
you
it,
have
but
a-
I didn't know if I had to notify you of everything I wanted to cover. A lot of it is just, you've said this, is it done? I can file a folder, just some clarification from you.
Are you all comfortable just whenever we do the administrative updates, we just go through them? If they're action items, we'll take care of it then. Ryan, we don't have to have a list on this.
No.
Okay.
Just wanted to
Is
be
that,
sure.
is that good enough, Suzanne? Is
Yeah.
that clarified? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know your procedures, so I just want to be sure I do it right.
So, anything else on the agenda?
I move that we approve the
Yeah.
agenda as amended.
Okay. And Jean Glover seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public comment period right now. No, approval of minutes from previous meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions to the previous meeting, specifically the Board of County Commissioners meeting first?
And I sent in my corrections.
I'm sorry, what?
I sent in my corrections.
Okay, is there any before the board right now? Okay, so
So I'd move that we approve.
the Board of County Commissioners minutes from August 12th meeting, we got a motion, second, all in favor? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do the Board of Health. Do we have to do social services also?
No.
Okay. So the Board of Health minutes,
I was good with the Board of Health. I didn't see anything on there, so
And there again, I also sent in whatever corrections I had.
so my motion.
motion on the Board of Health, Jean, and a second.
Yes.
Suzanne seconded. Any discussion or objections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the minutes are approved. Next item on the list is public comment. We open this up for the public to bring issues before the board. 3 minutes. Please limit your presentation to 3 minutes, and no formal action will be taken. So looking around the room,
I believe I qualify for that. I'm Patty Kelly, and I'm with Dean Mountain Park and Rec. And we've only seen on Zoom, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to come here and meet you guys. And the last time we met was in June. And at that time, we had talked about getting some clarity on the well, which Ryan has been working on, and we've been working with the department and almost on that. And then we said after that, then we could possibly get together for a work session or be on the agenda again to continue talking about it. And so I'm just saying we're still very interested in that. So, in our food for that,
thank you.
okay?
Patty, do you mind spelling your name for the minutes?
Pardon me?
Could you spell your name for the minutes, please?
Yeah, it's PATTI KELLEY.
Thank you.
And so we'll hear from you perhaps about that?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, we
you
look
will.
forward to it.
Thank you.
And also, we have like immediate, short-term and long-term goals. And if you guys are interested in that, we can write them up, send them to you before the meeting, or, you know, whatever information we can supply to you, we'd be happy to.
Great. I know this conversation is going to be taking place down the road in the next couple of weeks. We'll be talking about it, and there's still information out there. Things are kind of just
I
randomly
understand.
popping up. So,
I understand.
okay.
But if you want to know anything, just contact. I'm the contact person for that, so just let me know.
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks, Patty.
Really
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Have a good
Appreciate you.
day.
Okay, are there any other public comments at this point? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The three items on there are the accounts payable, the payroll, and the IGA for San Luis Valley All Hazards. Bobby had two items that were not in our accounts payable summary. Are they before us today? Do you know, Suzanne?
With that,
That would be the road and bridge
Bridge.
and the 2017 closeout of the Homeland Security grant, I think it was.
and there was supposed to be vouchers that you weren't in the list you got.
That's what I was told by Bobby, yes.
Do they have the If they want to fill a voucher to bring in, I'll just. Those are included in your report?
There are included in the report.
Yeah, and she said she'll bring those two vouchers if you want to look at them.
It wasn't so much that, it was originally, I think she printed this on 22nd and then said that she had a couple more that weren't included.
Yeah. And she might not have reprinted the thing, but the report, but she said, yes, the totals and everything are in what she's processing, and if you want to see those two, she will do it.
Okay. Well, are you all comfortable that we know what they are?
I am.
Okay, one of them is $11,093 and it's listed as credit card statement. But I thought that was the closeout on the 2017 Homeland Security grant.
That sounds like, I mean, money, she's gonna pull them and bring them in.
Okay.
She's coming out. There's a credit card. One is the 11,000.
Yeah,
Is that the closeout on that grant? Or is that,
the Staples is the closeout on the grant.
okay, so there are three of them then?
Yeah, two Staples and the JP Morgan for Road and Bridge.
Right, for the
Close out of the
lease and the, okay. But Bobby is stand correct. That's not on the list you printed out or we sent us, right? These three,
Right, they're on the one you are gonna sign
the one that's in the
packet.
this packet right here.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Are there any other questions other than mine on the accounts payable?
I don't have any. I'd move that we approve the
Consent agenda?
consent agenda.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any objections or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us down. What? Who's protecting the county? You're all in here. I hear a dog.
This is Jake. Newest member.
I think I've seen him before.
We've, thanks to the Canine Association, we've hired Jake from Monty for nothing. And we've got him all set up. He's actually already been put to work once. But we wanted to bring him up and introduce him to all of you. And he's already got his work cut out for him starting today again. Anyway, thank you to the Canine Group. We really appreciate everything that they've done for us. And also a couple other agencies that assisted us. This is, I know of at least 6 years in the works to get a certified dog. And we finally have one.
You have a vehicle for him.
Yes, we have the vehicle for them. They even assisted us, I think it was Centennial.
County.
Yeah, and it's all set up, ready to go, and we're ready to go to work.
So can you tell us what kind of things Jake does?
He's certified on all illegal narcotics. So he's trained to source, so he's actually trained to find the narcotic, not just alert on odor.
Cool.
I think I saw a demonstration with him once. We sniffed around the room.
Once we get things set up now, we're planning on doing that. So, yeah, he's a welcome part of the agency now.
Is there a line item for dog food?
Excuse me?
Is there a line item for dog food?
Yeah,
Put it in the
So-
jail. Yeah.
we're doing pretty good with that. We're doing pretty good. Yeah, this is a line item that I like to see. So, but like I said, 6 years in the works, and we finally got one.
So Heath, are you the handler?
Yes, I've been Jake's handler since he was a pup. So this is the same dog I worked in Molly.
Mhm. Are you here with the department now?
Yes.
All right.
He's one of my investigators.
Okay.
So he's with me, and so I got him. I needed a dog. That's what keeps. he's going.
You couldn't just send him in by himself to sniff
Oh,
around?
you should have seen him in the office. He was going crazy.
Oh, I bet. So you guys had a hand in this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as part of the K9 unit, we were developed in Monte Vista to help the Monte Vista Police Department establish their K9 unit. And that's where we came into play, and Marta pretty much took the lead on that one under Chief John Rosecrans, and really raised a lot of funds, helped support the initiation of the K9 program and the funding behind Jake. I mean, just so you're aware of, we purchased this dog through our funds and felt that it was best that it could stay with his handler as possible. Otherwise, the dog gets shipped off somewhere else, and it's pretty stressful on them. But we felt that it would be best if we could convince the sheriff to bring him forward as our officer dog, K9. We believe the value of this dog might be around $7,500, something like that. But we can get him for that, and for a lot less. And we're honored that that dog can stay here in the valley and support and work with other agencies, I'm sure, because not all agencies have a K9 unit. And I think this is going to have a huge impact on the community and in our school districts as well.
Yeah.
That's
I
great.
appreciate them coming forward.
No, thank
Really
you.
helped.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
So our program is, keeps the dog and handler sustainable. There's no funds paid for the handler, but the dog is sustained through our donations.
Are you gonna continue doing that then, working with the sheriff's
Pardon?
department? I know you were doing that in Monte Vista.
In Monte Vista, yes.
Right.
That hasn't been discussed yet. There's conversations going on. We'll make a determination at our next board meeting to see if it's feasible for us to continue to support another dog.
Well,
But I know there's
sounds like you
other
guys got a
support in the
handle on it.
community as
Do
well.
Sounds like you have a handle on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
we got a
we
work in
are
progress.
assisting on
We're getting
food
there.
at this time right now.
Good to go.
So,
Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And thanks to them that, we move forward a lot here.
Well, I know they've worked hard. In fact, I've got one of the shirts, I think, every time I go someplace where you guys
Did you
are,
get the new one?
you
This
tackle.
is the
I don't
new
have the
shirt.
new one. No. Wow. No.
I saw that advertised at, the nose shop that they're
Oh,
by,
yes, we were just talking about that.
what's it called? Fay Moon? Fay Moon or something like that.
Maybe,
Yeah, I saw that advertised there. It's the first time I'd seen this. That's
so,
great.
Corinna's taking the lead on developing the shirts and making them, and marketing them for us as well. That's pretty much how we're supported right now, is raising funds and bringing awareness through the community and based solely off the donations or the sales of the shirts. Last year we did hold a golf tournament, which was highly successful. This year, because of COVID, it's probably not going to happen this year. So we're gonna reach out to our supporters again for a little more help this year.
I assume I'll get a call.
More than likely. It's a worthwhile program. I think once you see Jake put to use and how valuable he is,
Yeah,
you'll
it's-
find that it's going to be a great asset.
There's
for you guys.
no question about that. So
Thank you, all of you.
You guys.
I want to.
Thank you very much.
I'll give you my card and. I should have bought some shirts.
Good work.
Did you bring me-
You got anything else for us? You got that, you got all your witnesses here.
I brought the heavyweights, so we can start, but yeah, thank you again.
Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
You'll get to see Jake around because we've already been in the schools. We're going to use them in the jail and also in the courtrooms, in the court buildings.
What about the rest of the courthouse?
Oh, yeah. You will. And that's one of the things, any of the common areas particularly we'll be into. So we've got a lot on the plate to work with. They come about fast, and I was glad to be able to get in with them and get things done and get the dog. And I think what helped was bringing Heath over, Hart, the handler, as one of my investigators. So that helps too. I know Jake only will work for him. I do know that firsthand. So, it works out. But anyway, from there, I want to bring you on updates on a few other things we're doing. And I've got Tyler with me, and I brought the undersheriff up, talk about some stuff. We've got some figures for you. I'm going to hand these out so you can see what we're doing. The 3-year study, remember in the past we've done that. And I did the same thing here. This is the 3-year numbers for first of the year through August. And if you look bottom line, we have increased. We're up to almost 5,000 calls for service for this year. Looking at almost a 12% increase from last year this time over calls. And as we're seeing more and more calls coming in, dispatch is handling more telephone calls. And I'm trying to put those numbers together for the first half of the year. And I think, remember the last tour, day that y'all come over and you saw how dispatch can get with one person. It gets kind of busy. So we're looking at that, looking at those numbers. So I'll have those for you. Hopefully next month we'll go around on that. One of the other things that we talked about was records, reports, Senate Bill 217, what it's doing to us. Okay. I pulled, and I don't have enough copies. I only got one copy to pass around to give you an idea. This is the kind of reports that we've got to put together for state. Now, this is the use of force. Any use of force is indicated here. An officer's presence, deputy's presence is a use of force. Okay, it's a low level, their presence, because just by us showing up, it can make somebody do something that they normally wouldn't want to do, or stop them from doing something. So we look at that. This is the contact. We have to keep contact sheets on it, and so we're working on it's like an FI card, a field interview card, if they make contact with somebody. And we have to keep track, was the person searched for weapons? Was the vehicle searched at all? We have to keep track of that too. So a summons, a citation may not be issued, but if there's a traffic stop and there's no such thing as verbals anymore, you either get a ticket or you get a written warning, because of the way the information has to be tracked now for state. It's inputted, but we have to sit down and pull that information out that we have. So, deputies can't do that. They don't have the time. Okay, we don't have the time in administration. So that's where we talked last month about a record specialist doing the reports. We had another report come down from state. I don't know how long it's going to go, but it's a jail report. And it goes monthly, quarterly, and annually reports. And they have to sit down and I saw what the spreadsheet's going to look like. And just to do that, the quarterly report takes about a week because it's a hand search right now on every person that has been an inmate during that time frame. And there's certain parameters that we have to pull data from. We're going to try to build a report out of our database to get that data. Right now, it's done by hand, individually scrolling through every data entry. So that one was last month after our last meeting. It was brought to my attention and we got an email on it. The state's requiring this. So again, we're falling back on records. Okay. I've reached out to see what we have out there as far as personnel and qualifications. We had 4 come forward. 2 of them are really highly qualified because one individual has worked with police records already in the past, so knows what the base is. The other one has worked on the civilian side as far as records and working with a company, but he also has IT background. So, looking at what, we can do in-house with some of these people, it's going to be tremendous. But the issue is we're collecting data. We got to correlate phone calls, radio traffic, with calls for service, and with the reports themselves. All of that has to be put together, packaged, and sent to the DA. And it's all done under an e-file system. Right now, I've got my evidence tech trying to do e-file. I've got my investigators trying to help with e-files, but that's how all the reports get filed now with the district attorney. So they have that. It used to be we could put it together, burn a copy off and run it up. We can't do that anymore. Everything is done electronically. So it takes time to sit there and put that in. So as far as, personnel, it's almost like I'm going to have to steal from Peter to pay Paul. I got to get somebody. It's not an overnight here. Here's what you do, train. It's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to train somebody in each area so they know what data they have to pull. Same with in-house video in the jail. That has to be maintained for a minimum of 2 years. The state statute of limitations on lawsuits for law enforcement is 2 years. Okay? Within that 2 years, they have to file a lawsuit for state. That's not saying federal. Federal is a little bit longer. But at least on the state side, they made it an easy payout, $25,000. Okay?
So would you fall under the federal statutes if the federal statutes say longer?
You can be sued both 2 ways.
And how long is the federal?
It's usually 7 years. Okay. But that's a little bit different. If we have an incident, we maintain the incident. But it goes back to the recordings. We have to record stuff. Right now, a video server for my jail, minimum 25,000. And that's with 10 terabytes. Okay. 1 terabyte can handle 1,500 CDs. And that's a lot. When we go to court, we send stuff up for court. Usually it averages 4 to 6 CDs for just one case. And that doesn't include if we got to pull audio from the telephone call where it initiates. And that's the important thing that Senate Bill 217 does not say in there. It just says at the beginning of a call for service, the recording will be initiated. Recording initiated is with dispatch. That initial recording is where it falls in. That, the radio transmissions, and even to the deputy's recording has to be put together in a package, saved, so it can be then sent to the DA. Okay. The other thing the DA has just requested too, we got last week, is they want the victim's cell phone data saved and we have to download it. Okay. If it's not voluntary, then we have to get a search warrant. Okay. With that, so that means another piece of evidence has to be saved, a recording, voicemail. text messages have to be downloaded, and they got specific software now that does that. One of the things we got to be aware of is we cannot network a couple of these computers. They have to be standalones to record the data to get it either on a CD or into a safe place. Okay, so we're looking at equipment. It's just not bodies. We're looking at equipment. Just the 2 computers I spec'd out for the recordings is $4,600.
Especially since this is a state mandate, are there grants available that would?
We've tried,
this stuff?
okay. One of them is like the body worn camera grants, and there's no money in it. They put it in 2 years ago in 2018, but they didn't fund it like they should have. So the funds that we need are not there.
So are there grants like from other organizations, possibly on a national level, or?
The
What
feds just tried to put through the body worn camera grant. It was shot down. Okay, it was introduced into the from the House through the Senate. It was all shot down. No, we're not going to fund it. We're not going to give law enforcement. They're basically they said they're not going to fund law enforcement. And DOJ, doesn't have the grants. Department of Justice. So yes, we're looking for grants. We're trying to look for money wherever we can, and we're trying to save across the board, because it's just not this. We're looking at our vehicle, our fleet, and we've got the handouts. If you bring the handouts up, moving. I want to move along. I don't want to take too long, on this. But this is information on our fleets and different stuff we're looking at trying to take care of our fleet. And
So basically, this is just the patrol side. This doesn't have anything to do with the transport vans. They're lower mileage. This is just the roadside. All the vehicles we got, basically. As you see at the bottom, total number of vehicles is 22. Total number of vehicles right now we have available to us is 14. The total we need for patrol is 20. I put together this end of July, beginning of August, all the mileage. If you look at the red, the 2 red, that's over 200,000 miles. Yellow is over 150,000 miles. Orange is between 100 and 150. The green is below 100,000. The average vehicle mileage per year, averaging out, is 157 miles per year. High end on that, we've got one patrol vehicle that was doing 30,000 miles a year. By the end of this year, based off of those numbers, out of the 20 vehicles we have, 15 of them will be over 200,000 miles. Or 150,000 miles. 7 of those will be over 200,000. Sorry. I have begun looking at other things. It's part of the packet as well. Just trying to look at numbers, look at options. I know we've gotten 2 pickups last year. Before that, it was the 2017 pickup. We only got 1. We got 1 pickup in 2015 and 2 in 2014. None in 16. We've got some issues because these aren't just daily driver vehicles. These are, you run code to a call, we're up in the hills. These vehicles are used pretty hard. And with that many miles, we're running into some dangers. We've got 2 pickups right now that have been in the shop one of them's been in the shop over 2 months.
Is that the 99?
No, that's Captain Black's pickup, and actually that's being replaced with one of the new pickups we got just this year. So that's already in the works. The 4 vehicles that you see that are, the lettering is in red, those are the 2 new ones we got this year, and the 2 that are projected to be replaced by those 2 new ones. If you look at the right-hand side, It's not just the whole maintenance. I did not include oil changes, stuff like that, regular maintenance. This is additional maintenance. That top one, we're at 5,700 on it. It's had the timing chain done a couple of times, top end transmission, camshaft sensors and such. It's been in the shop. That's the one that's been in the shop for a couple months, more than 2 months. The other one that's marked in the shop is in red. That one is having trans problems. In fact, I'm hoping to get maybe one of them back this week because we really need it. But I'm kind of doubtful. The parts that are needed for the 2 pickups for the transmission problems are on national back order. No one can get them. They're trying to work things out to at least get us one of them back, but we'll see what happens. So basically I went on looking at possible setups for vehicles, anything like that. The second page there, that is between GM, Ford, and Ram vehicles. That the top row, that's a complete setup if we had to get everything new. The bottom row is just without lights or anything like that, if we could possibly get those used like we have in the past, or use off of some of the vehicles we have now. Makes a bit of a difference. I did contact Ford, GM, and Dodge. They gave me quotes on vehicles. The Ford pickup for patrol that we got this year was at $33,000. They have now quoted us for next year. It has gone up to $37,000.
Yeah, I just had a conversation this morning with the Ford franchise dealerships, and they were telling me that they had gone up an average of $4,000 to $5,000 straight across the board.
So I do have quotes in here, just quick quotes. They do make, all 3 of those brands do make special service vehicles, law enforcement vehicles. Those are equipped with better alternators, better electrical, because of everything we run electrical. There is quite a difference. The first couple pages are from Ford, and then it goes into GM. A regular base pickup that we looked at, just like what we've been getting with Ford, short bed, extra large fuel tank. They're looking at 29. So it's quite a difference. Their special service vehicle to be able to handle some of the better some of the equipment we use. It's only at 31, which is still under what a base pickup of Ford would be, like what we've been getting. So those quotes are in there. There's different things we can opt out of or opt in on some of these setups. And this is only based off of just getting the vehicle from them. They do offer, full setups for vehicles, setting them up, but it would be easier if based off the numbers, if we had the setups done here versus before we get them, price wise, equipment wise, just because if we can get some of this equipment used possibly or anything like that, we can put them in ourselves. Last couple pages is for Ram. They only sent me a quote on the SSV vehicle. Oh, wait. Yeah. So I only have that quote. The quote says $44,420 for the price, but if you see the last 2 pages in this, it's my email between myself and Eric up at Ram. He actually states that our price would be $29, which is below for the SSV pickup. It would be below what GM is offering.
All 3 of them have state bid numbers.
They're already figured in as the state.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, they all have them.
So right before the Ram stuff, I got to look into, because of how many vehicles we have that are going to be over 200,000, something really needs to be done, and it's not feasible. I don't feel that it's feasible financial wise for the county to be able to fork all this money over all at one time right away. I have looked into municipal leasing programs. Ford and GM both have municipal leasing programs. Ram does not. There is a quote in here from GM for financial, for the municipal leasing. I just threw out the number of vehicles. I was just trying to get a rounded quote across the board. This is what I got back from them. At 14 vehicles, it would be $93,000 a year for a 5-year plan. I've looked into also, because the Ram pickup is a little bit cheaper on the SSV from the quote they gave. They don't have the municipal leasing programs that GM and Ford does. So I did contact, Delmar Bank. They were more than happy to look into it for me. I did get a call back from them, and they're not able to do that because we're a government agency, because of the Tabor laws, they felt, which they said if we could get something worked out with the county attorney, you guys, anything like that, if the Tabor laws did not apply, then they would be willing to do something. I know if that were to happen, you guys would have to do, what were you saying? Commissioners would have to look into.
What we did with my former employer was the commissioners created a resolution to finance pickups in the past. It was handled through the county attorney. Of course, the bank has their attorney. They used Alamos Estate Bank, I believe, is who ended up with the loan, and they were able to finance it that way.
What happens at the end of the?
So as far as the GM and the Ford, I looked into that balloon payment just to make sure. And actually what it is on both GM and Ford, basically, as long as everything's paid off in that 5 years, paid down, no missed payments, anything like that, at the end of that, it's basically $1 per vehicle. And what that is technically considered is a title transfer fee.
So at that point, we paid off the value of the vehicle. There's no residual or anything like that we're talking about. We own the vehicles, all of which will have over 200,000 miles on them.
In a 5-year, if you look at the first page, I did look at,
I think it was around 13,000 miles.
at a 150,000 replacement time period, you're looking at just over 7 years, based off of the average.
Sure.
For the miles.
So part of my concern is then you have 14 vehicles that are all the same age.
Yep.
And then you get in that cycle where you can't, I would almost rather see us replace 2 or 3 a year every year.
See, we were looking at
opposed to doing-
a five vehicles would be okay to rotate the 5 in, and which worked out, if I remember my numbers right on that, was 64,000 a year. So, we've dropped it down.
I did break down the GM leasing program because at that time, that's all I had. I only had the GM leasing quote. Basically, based off of that, for the 5-year program with the interest rate that they've said here, broke it down by vehicle. Basically, if we did 10 vehicles, that would drop the payment to 64 a year versus the 93. We could look at something like that and try and work in to stay with, like last year, I believe we were, it was set for 80,000 for vehicles, for new vehicles, to try and stay within that or a little below to be able to get to that replacement. Because if we actually replace every 5 years, that'd be 2.82 vehicles per year, but if we bumped it up to 3, we'd be keeping that below the mileage. We wouldn't get in this pinch.
So what
Again.
you're looking at is a pipeline instead of a surge.
Mhm.
You're gonna keep something in there.
And this is what I threw out to him. You know, he actually started a couple of months ago putting all this together because we're seeing vehicles mileage. Yeah, 21,000 a year is nothing. It's real easy. It's easy to put 200 to 300 miles on a day without even thinking of it. If you got to run 3 to 4 trips from one end of the county to the other, you know, you're racking up miles real fast. So we're trying to look at all options. And one of the things, you know, and you notice, I told him, I says, I don't want a balloon payment. You know, look at that. Look at everything. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to see where we can save some, but yet be ahead, because right now, the way we're going, we're not going to be ahead. You know, I'm going to end up putting a hitching post out there because that's where it's going. So we got to take care of that, and we got to look at it now. This should have been looked at 5 years ago, a little bit tighter, but it wasn't.
Well, this is a result of years of bad management or bad planning.
Yeah.
And now it does perfect.
Yeah, but you've done it, dumbass.
But anyways, that's kind of what I was putting together, just to see where we're at.
Oh, man.
That's Scott Deacon.
So, yeah, that's the vehicles. That's what we're looking at. You know, our budget, I'm looking at everything. This year has been hit with everything. So we're trying to see where we can save on stuff. You know, the body cameras. Do we keep, you know, pushing for next year? Or do we put them off a year because we have to have them by 2023? But we still have to have audio recordings. Okay, it doesn't matter. We got video, that's fine, but we still have to have audio recordings the way the statute reads. Okay, so anyway, that's the vehicle side. That's to give you a heads up on what we're looking at on vehicles. The packets are for you. You take a look at them and see what we're doing. I think Tyler did a good job.
Tyler, I have a question, and this really doesn't have anything to do with the dollar amount so much, but when you did the Ford bids, I noticed they bid everything at a 5.0 instead of 5.4. And you're gonna have Hemis and the Dodges and 5.3s and the Chevys. That 5.0 is not the motor. I mean, a 5.4 is a lot better motor horsepower wise.
Honestly, with the 5.0s in the pickups that we have right now and the 2 new ones from this year and the 2 from last year, Ford's running with a 10-speed transmission. It makes a difference. Yeah, it really does. They're running really well. The only issue is one of the pickups we got last year, it was all warranted, but it ended up with a leak out of the transmission that we ended up having to take back 3 separate times. It was all warranted.
10-speed transmission.
Yeah. Well, this was one of the electrical connections that goes through. The seal was not.
Grommet. Yeah, that was an issue there.
I love electric transmissions. They're great. There's no way to see the electric in the world.
Yep. So
I just saw that on there.
Yeah.
I know the ones we ordered were all 5.0.
Yeah. And honestly, well, mine is the 2015. That's when they switched over. The only pickup we've had issues with was that one from last year, and it's only that one.
Come from China.
I don't know.
When we had these conversations, well, it started last year. And we were talking about how are we going to take care of this fleet replacement issue in an affordable fashion, doing the 2 or whatever. And obviously that doesn't sustain itself. We have to have one thing, you might have a vehicle just totally destroyed or something.
Yeah.
Particularly one of the older ones, something where it's going to cost a lot to replace it, something new. And I'm assuming you're talking to us in terms of, we're looking at the budget for next year and how to factor all these things in, along with all these other mandated, unfunded mandates that you're facing from the SB 217.
Yeah.
And who knows what else. I mean, it sounds overwhelming to me.
It is.
Well, the only thing that I think has really saved us is we have all, as soon as this 217 and stuff started hitting, we started right away looking, okay, where's it going? What do we need to do? You know, it's just like the cameras thing. You know, we've pretty much boiled down. There's one of the companies on the cell phone that they use. Initial cost 31,000 for the year to get it going. That includes all the storage and that. After that, it's 26.5, I think it worked out to be per year. No contract, you know, it's on a year to year. Not like some of the other cameras where you have a 5-year contract. And at the end of that contract, you have to look at a new contract again.
On the cameras and the storage, is there an option to use like cloud storage, or do you have to have it on a server?
That was a lot of
Yeah.
what we were looking at, because
cloud-based.
servers, we'd have to.
There's
have-
no way we could store. Now, our jail video be a little bit different, okay? That's in-house, okay? That's separate. That's not camera-based for body worn. Okay, all the body worn cameras will be saved through the company on the cloud. I'm going to tell you right now, the company that we're looking at, Visual Labs, out of all 5 companies that come forward, is the cheapest. They use the cell phone information. They've got GPS, geo-tracking, everything we need is on there. And it includes, we set our retention rate in the cloud. I go up, the administrators, whoever I assign administrators, we set that. We got some that don't need to go more than 2 years, fine. We got some that need to go 7 years, like some is, or 10 years. Most of electronic recordings have to be a 10-year retention.
Did I remember in that bill, there was something about some of it needed to be saved in perpetuity?
Yeah.
And is it just some of it, or is it all of it?
No,
or?
just some of it.
Okay.
Just some of it. Because, yeah,
And
you're talking, yeah, anything, when you look at your felonies, you know, felony 1, 2, and 3, or anything to do with DNA, anything to do with, you know, homicides, rapes, you know, anything along that line.
is
You
there a
have
requirement?
indefinite.
Is there a requirement for what type of storage? Because we've been talking about it recently, you know, is no matter what kind of storage you use, it has a tendency to be subject to degradation.
The company that we've looked at, the Visual Labs, they're up on it. In fact, it was created by law enforcement. Okay, so the company knows what, and they stay right up on it. They know what's going on. The same video and that is used by other judicial districts, which have followed up on. One in particular, 4th Judicial District, they like it. It's so easy to use because we don't have to give them the video. We tell them, here's your link, you go up and get it, okay? It's up to them. So we don't have to worry about that transmission.
And then if that link somehow doesn't work, then it's not your responsibility.
It's not my responsibility, okay? Then it's between them and the company. But the company guarantees that link, okay? So yeah, that's what's really important too. Also, the company guarantees security, okay? The other companies didn't come forward and state it. They are level 3 certified as far as security goes. The other companies haven't said that. So my question is, are you hackable? I don't need a company that's hackable, okay? That's data lost. And now, you know, Visual Labs, they're right up there, they're top, being in law enforcement, being created by law enforcement, they know what has to be done. So, and it is being used in Colorado right now, and by agencies, so that's good. I'm going to see the time. The next area I'm going to throw out, we were talking about radios the last time. What we're looking at now, we've got a chance to grab some refurbished radios, which I put them as just as good as new radios, if not better, because they've been going through the cycle at least twice to make sure they work. So we're looking at a good cost savings on those, approximately 25% of what a new radio would cost. So we're looking at where we can move and actually start in this year, we can get some new radios in place to replace our old ones, because we have to replace 8 radios in the mobiles this year because they're Astros. The Astros have to be replaced. They're not capable of going through the new system. So we're looking at those. We can also get refurbished handhelds, because right now we've got 9 that are dead that we cannot use, and we're short those handhelds. So as far as the radios go, we're looking at trying to pull the refurbished side, saving a lot of money there. For what we're saving, we can get another 2 to 3 more radios on top of getting refurbished.
You're having to go to a new band now.
They have to add, they're adding 700 megs.
So you're going to the 700 meg band
So
also.
7 and 8, yeah.
And that's why the Astros are not.
They're not
capable of even doing
programmable
it.
at all.
Gotcha.
So
And so what do you have in your budget as far as room for that this year?
well, we're working this year. I think we've got where we can pick up a couple this year to help replace it. And we're already working, as you can see, this is my next year's budget folder that I'm working on already. Okay. So I'm trying to look at that and see what we can do. You know, it boils down, some of the stuff, I'm taking from Peter to pay Paul. Okay. And I'm trying to keep it as low as possible. But yet, with the mandates and the equipment going out, you know, it twice a week, if not more, we all sit down and start chopping. What can we do here? What can we do here? You know, we're always doing that, and we've been doing it since March.
Well, 217 is not going to go away. There is a fight.
No.
We are looking at it again in January as one of the ones we're going to bring back up and re-attack.
We got notified that there's a number of amendments for 217, but we don't know who is making the amendments. We won't know until next month at our conference. Our conference, 217, is in highlights right now. I mean, they're talking 2.5 days of going over this, you know, and other sheriffs are in.
Some stuff on that. On
So
217.
we're trying to stay up on it. You know, we're trying to be active with it and see what we can do. You know, just not to save us, but, you know, looking across to everybody. You know, it's the county's involved. And the citizens are involved in this, whether they like it or not. Okay. It's happening. So that's the quick and down and dirty update for 45 minutes.
Well, thanks for keeping it brief.
Thank you for all that.
So, you know, I'll leave it at that. Like I said, we're staying busy. Our bottom line with numbers, our calls for service are going up. That's not stopping. You know, everything out there. Pay. Canales County threw me a curve. I'm gonna throw it out now. They just advertised for their people. They've upped their pay to $17 an hour starting. Mine starts below that.
How far below?
$1.57. I know the numbers. Okay.
And last I knew, Canales County, that's starting, but years of service, you get paid more depending on if you 0 to 5 years, 5 to
Right,
10.
but that's your start.
that's
So
the
that's
start.
what you're competing with. When you go out to a new hire.
I can't even compete with Mineral County. They start their deputies at $20 an hour.
But they're a rich county. They're considered rich.
Yeah, but see, right now, I'm the second from the bottom. Castillo's below us. 'Cause I've done figures.
So that begs the question, what are you guys doing
You know, the people I got working now, they want to be here. Okay.
We take advantage of it.
But, you know, I need something out there because I need 8 bodies for the jail side. I'm down 8. I'm down 4 on the patrol side.
And then one that we don't know.
Yeah. I've had a couple say, hey, you know, I don't know if I want to continue this job or not.
And then
Because with 217 is impacting this. You know, I know good officers. I'd love to put them to work, But they said they don't want to work in this business anymore because of what the state's doing. And, you know, they've got 10+ years in law enforcement and they're walking away from it. You know, so we're working hard. I mean, I've got one on the jail side that we're trying to help them as much as we can to go through the academy to pull them in on us, you know, and so we're working at that. I'm trying every angle I can. You know, I know where there's 2 that will come, and I want them because they've got a number of years service in. They want to come work for us, but the money's not there. The benefits even, you know.
We've got one guy starting on the 1st, and then that'll still leave 4 positions on the road open. Minus, well, 3, because minus the one that is going through the academy now, if he continues and completes. And
we're just not sitting there letting things run. I mean, we're every day. You come down and sit with us. You'll see every day we're talking money, we're talking bodies. What can we do here? How can we do this? You know, can we shift stuff around?
Do you guys, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but do you guys have a time that you set up? Like on Mondays, you have a meeting, staff meeting?
Every morning.
Every morning? What time?
Every morning we
every
spend
morning,
what time?
at least an hour together going over stuff.
What time?
when we first get there, usually it's around 7, but
Yeah.
if we need, we can put it to
Can I
8
get
or
in?
whatever.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You're all welcome. I don't bar the door, you know. I got extra rooms, you know.
No,
Feed you
I don't
3
want to
to
get in
5.
and stay in. I want to just get in and get out.
Your extra rooms seem to have bars on.
Really? After a while, you get used to it. You don't think of it. But no, that's it's one thing, you know, with Chris coming on board and with Tyler now, we all sit down. That's the first thing. Everyone grabs a coffee and comes in and sits down in my office. And we go, okay, what's going on today? What do we have here? And we talk. Every day we talk budget. We do. Yeah, even this morning we were on it. So, you know, it's not like we're just letting water run under the bridge. You know, we're trying to do something. And believe me, I look at stuff and I go, you know, this should have been done before. Why wasn't this taken care of? You know, and everyone, I've gotten everyone on board, even to the jail side. They're all on board too, you know, looking at, okay, what can we do to save money? What can we do to make things easier for us to get things done and save time? You know, so anyway, that's my update.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Appreciate
you.
you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you so
you. Have
much.
a good day.
We're trying.
Okay. Jody, how long is yours?
Not this long.
And you didn't even bring any fuzzies. No dogs or anything.
Oh, no. No. I emailed you guys all of the reports yesterday. So you guys have those. Just so you guys know, not to add more to your plates, but you guys are going to have some pretty difficult decisions to make. I appreciate where Don's advocating for his department. But if you guys remember 2 years ago, you guys took my mill levy to fund the sheriff's office. If you looked at the audit report, my fund balance is getting dangerously low, and that's not going to be able to continue to happen. And that's not a decision, that is a statute requirement. And so you guys are going to have to shift the mill levy back to my department. The same thing with the vehicles and stuff, due to budgets. I didn't replace my fleet. They're 30,000 a year is nothing compared. We have cars almost daily going to Denver, which is a 400, 500 mile round trip a day. So I have probably vehicles that are a little bit worse shape than what they're doing transporting kids
Why are
right
we
now.
doing that with all these other transportation programs that are out there?
So it's much cheaper to pay a staff person to do it. We are on call all the time of having to do it. We have to go see those kids and we're required to do face-to-face to see them. One of my workers today is leaving to do an emergency removal from a respite provider to another provider. So yeah, it just is an on-call every single day.
So we're doing recoveries in Denver?
There are kiddos. We don't have placements here. There's no facilities in the San Luis Valley to put some of these children.
So we put them in Denver.
Correct.
And we're having to run back and forth. to take care of
Absolutely.
them.
We do.
Can't use
So-
bus tank.
Nope. they have to be by us. And we're required once a month to see them in person. So,
So we have to run up there to see them.
correct. Yep. So just, you guys are gonna have some pretty tough things. We're working on our budget as well too, but a lot of that money that you guys were trying to help the sheriff's office out with and stuff is going to have to shift back to mine. Whether if it's next year or the year after that, I'll have to look to see how close our fund balance is, but it's down there pretty good. Suzanne had asked me the other day
So
about it as well.
even with COVID, is face-to-face does not mean on Zoom?
They did allow some of that,
Mhm.
but they do encourage in person. It's sometimes very hard to know how those kids are doing. We did do a lot of face-to-face, but a lot of that is now relaxing and we're now starting to do it. But just like moving this child from this one thing, you can't do that over Zoom.
Okay.
It physically has to be moving the child to where they need to
I
go.
was just thinking about, the face-to-face meetings and.
The state did allow some of that, but it's one of those things that we are required. And so
Part of it is the requirement is that have to inspect the
Home.
bedroom and the place where the
Yep.
child is actually residing, and then be able to document that it's a safe and appropriate environment and it continues to be.
Okay.
Otherwise, if the child is injured while in that placement and you didn't document that, that's where the county's on.
So, and this falls to county general fund revenues or tax revenues,
correct.
not state funded or federal.
So you have
funded
to have a
programs.
match. You have to have that 20% match. And so 80% is federal and state, 20% is local. So you have to have that 20 match in order to draw it down. In addition to that, I've had discussions with you guys about child welfare being so overspent. Thankfully, all those years we have been bailed out. But again, I'm very, very cautious and worried about what the next years could bring, because with the state shortfalls, the budget, the billions the state is short, I don't know that that's going to continue to be the case. Last year, it was $600,000. I only have about 300,000 sitting in my fund balance. So that means county general, you would have to come up with $300,000 a year at least to bail out child welfare at the rate we're going right now. And that's not at my discretion. There's nothing I can do about that. Ryan's had lots of talks. Judicial's very aware of this. There's just sometimes we don't have any control of what it costs to put these kids in placement. So when you guys are thinking the bigger picture, and I don't want to say one department's more important than another, ours are statutorily required. You don't get a choice on some of this stuff. So just hard decisions for the board, I think, that you're going to have to make during budget time. Just making sure you guys know the full picture. Don does a great job advocating for his department, but I have to make sure I do mine as well too. And like I said, a lot of mine's not my discretion. It totally is statute that you guys will have to figure out how to fund.
It sounds like some of his are statute also.
Correct. So that's where you
Advice.
got to work with CCI and figure out how you guys are going to master this with one of the lowest mill levies in the valley, and I think probably in the state. Yeah, pretty close.
At least
to-
it was. I
Yeah.
think there's two in the state below us, I think, what we remember.
I
think
don't
it's always
remember.
said.
Well,
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, there's some big decisions for you guys. So anyways, I wasn't planning on that this morning, but after listening to Dawn, I needed to make sure you guys were aware of that. Just so you know, April's working on the single entry point desk audit. Greg is working on a non-kinship review. We had a meeting at 9 and we have another one for the exit in the morning. We also submitted the documentation for adult financial and Colorado Works for the management evaluation. So I've got currently 4 reviews going on within my department. I did send you guys the contract for the Byron Series Delta Center. It's for GED testing. It's exactly the same as the prior years. They just moved some of the line items around over how they wanted to pay for things. They didn't have to pay for a curriculum, so they did some on salaries. That was the only change, but the overall dollar amount of the $12,944 is the same as prior years. So I would need a
that's an
formal,
action item on
that
one.
is an action item for today.
And I would move that we approve that.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
Okay. Motion approved. Need my signature
Yes,
right
please.
now, I assume.
That would be great.
I was reading ahead. So
Yeah, the
sorry.
next line item has me a little worried
Yeah.
for our citizens.
That's the one we talked about the other day, just briefly.
Correct. So when I started over 10 years ago, it was the county's responsibility to provide and help with commodities to the citizens of Rio Grande County. over the years, that has shifted around. When that happened, the county partnered with Costilla County Public Health, and Costilla County Public Health, the third Wednesday of every month, brings commodities. Our part was we would help with staff because they couldn't afford to drive staff from down in San Luis up here. And so my staff has always helped hand out the commodities along with some of the maintenance staff and others in the county. Well, I was informed a week ago that they have notified the state that they are not able to do this anymore for Rio Grande Mineral or Alamosa County. And so Vivian's understanding is that it would be up to the state to find a new person, that it doesn't fall to the county. I haven't seen anything. I have no idea how that really works anymore because it doesn't come through. We have no agreements. I have no contacts, nothing. But effective September 30th, the citizens in Rio Grande, if the state doesn't find another vendor, will no longer be receiving those particular commodities. Those commodities are for our elderly population. There's two different sets. There's one for the general population, and then there's the elderly one. This is the elderly one.
How is elderly distributed right now through Castilla County, but how do they physically do it?
So what they do is they bring the food up in a box truck to the annex on the third Wednesday, and we go out and we help them box it up, and then we put it in their cars. And the people that are eligible and all the paperwork runs through Costilla County.
Okay, but they come to the recipients come to the parking lot.
Correct. And my staff has been, because of COVID, directing them through the parking lots, and because we get a
What
pretty.
happens if they're an elderly person can't drive?
We do some drops at homes, and we also deliver to Mineral County because my department serves Mineral County as well too.
Isn't there also a place in Monte Vista where you guys?
Correct. And it's the other part of it too, because we do in Del Norte and Monte at 11 o'clock, they truck down to Monte, and then at 1 o'clock they serve the citizens in Monte at the church.
So you have a system right now for that part of it.
Correct, but that is all ending September 30th.
Your part doesn't end September 30th.
That's the part I don't know, John. I don't have a contract. I don't have an agreement. I have nothing. We were just partnering with Costilla Public Health to make sure our citizens in Rio Grande County got that
So it
service.
was Castilla Public Health.
Correct. And Vivian said that she notified the state. She said that she would let me know more when she knows more, but I haven't heard anything back from her. But I'm extremely worried that if they don't find somebody else to do this, or how this is going to go, that we may have a population that is counting on these food boxes that may not get them starting in October.
Where do the commodities come from?
The state.
State
So-
feds.
So is Castilla still gonna have their commodities? at
My
their
understanding
place?
is she was
And
hoping
they're
this,
gonna- They'll be just Castilla though.
that is what Vivian told me.
And I understand Paul Wirtz went to work with Castilla Public Health.
Oh, did she? Did he? Yeah,
That's what
Vivian's
I'm saying.
retiring is what.
So what happens if they bring the commodities down to Castilla? What do we have to do to get them shipped toward Alamos?
I don't have any idea, Jean. That's not anything we've been part of. We've just helped them with the staffing piece of it.
Can,
And I have no contacts to even
if
find
we
out.
have contact with Vivian, could we get?
I
Vivian
asked her and she
she'll dig into
said
that
she
too?
was going to send me stuff. I haven't received it yet. I plan on following up with it to find out, but I wanted to make sure you guys knew as a board that this is happening and that I'm concerned for the
Yeah,
citizens.
So
we can't let this thing fall through the
Does
cracks.
the
If we can-
state send them down in a truck to Castilla
Correct.
County? And so if you had to take that over yourself, then
I don't have the capacity. You guys would have to
Yeah.
have a warehouse. You would have to have a place to store all the food. You would have to have freezers, manpower. There is absolutely
so-
no way my department can handle that.
so how do they, I don't even understand how this works. Do they just like, does the state bring it currently to Castilla County and Castilla County stores it all?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And do they bring like 2 months worth at one time, or do they
It
bring
depends.
it that day and then they just
It depends.
Okay.
They bring them down. They do have the freezers. They do have the warehouse. They have all of it.
Mhm.
I know Sawatch tried to do their own. I spoke with Linda when she was director up there. She said it was very challenging to try and meet all the criteria and the requirements because it's food. You have to make sure that, you have it handled appropriately. So we are not geared to take something like that on. So,
So over there, the public health department does it.
correct.
Over here, you assist as social services, their public health, our public health isn't involved.
Correct. And I will tell you how we got involved, John, and this was about 10 years ago. And I don't know if Suzanne remembers anything past this, but Tri-County Seniors was the one doing it. Tri-County was serving Sawatch and us and Mineral. Tri-County got out of it. And they said, we're not doing this. At that time, Costilla said, you know what, we'll do it for you guys. They got the truck donated to them. They got a bunch of stuff to be able to be geared to do this. And so at that time, there was some contract from the state, but there was something with the county piece of it. But that went away when Costilla County took it. And I haven't seen anything in about 10 years on
So
it.
we have a lot of unanswered questions.
I have a lot of unanswered questions. I
So
have a
how do we
lot
get
of,
the answers?
I am planning on following up with Vivian, but I just
And
didn't.
Vivian is Castilla County.
Correct. She's the
But I'm
public.
assuming we have some logistical things. Storage space, freezer space. cold
I don't
storage.
even think you guys want to get into
Well, we may
that.
not want to, but
Yeah.
those are the questions that have to be answered. Who has it?
Yeah.
Those kind of basic things. Otherwise, we're just gonna talk in circles around this. Who has it? Obviously, Tri-County had the capacity to do it at one time through some mechanism. I don't know what.
And they got rid of all their equipment,
That's
everything.
fine, but
Yeah.
we need to hear that.
Yep.
So we have an idea of what the options are, because as Gene said, we can't let this population drop through the cracks. So we understand it can't drop through the cracks. We have to find out what it takes to make it work, and then we have to figure out how we're gonna find somebody to make it work.
Well, and I don't know if it's your responsibility to make it work. According to Vivian, it's up to the state to make it work. That's where
Well,
I
that's-
would like clarification on that. And then you guys as a board, if you need to put some, follow up on the state to make sure that they do
Yeah.
serve these citizens is what I
The
think you need
unfortunate
to.
part about this is I've seen where we depend on the state, and I see how the
Yeah.
state treats everything west of I-25,
Yep.
and I'm not very happy about any of it. So whatever we
Vivian
do, if I
thought
can help,
maybe the food banks would take it over, but I don't know if they have the capacity to
Well,
do that
you'd
here.
have to speak to the individual food banks, but
They're all under La Puente. They're not
I'm
separate.
I'm
They,
familiar with Monte Vista. It does operate somewhat separate from La Puente in terms of the bookkeeping and finances and all.
kind of.
Yes, I'm talking about capacity.
Yeah.
How much room do they have?
Yeah.
Okay, there's not a lot of room left over in there right
Mm-mm.
now. So
Nope.
logistically, there are those issues. You have the issue of who's responsible, and if it's the state, what does that mean to us? But that would be a question to get answered early on. Then we
Yep.
can start putting pressure on the state, and then we can figure out capacity down here. And then I don't know if nonprofits can do this. Obviously, the food bank was doing it, or La Puente in some
I
capacity.
don't know.
Okay, but there's all these unanswered questions,
Correct.
and before we start the conversation and find out that we didn't do our homework.
So what I will do,
Um,
I will email Vivian, I will CC you guys, and I will ask her for follow-up of clarification if she has figured any of this out.
Okay, but find out from her who she talks with the state.
Yeah, that's what's gonna be in my email.
Okay, those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So because Vivian's gonna be out of the loop. Other
She
than
is gonna be
she's
out.
an information resource, but that's it. at this
Yeah,
point.
well, she's the one who has the current contract that is serving these counties.
So it's gonna be on.
And then we got to figure out what's going on. I just worry there is a lot of population that we serve. There was 70 in Monte Vista alone last Wednesday that met the need for that.
yeah, that's.
And that doesn't make me feel real good. Yeah, I'm just concerned. And so I just want to make sure you guys knew about it, knew that it was happening, and hopefully they come up with a plan. But I'm a little worried with 30 days of where this is going to
Well,
end up.
30 days is not much notice. I
No.
assume it was a fiscal year issue, September
Correct.
30th, so that
Yep.
Castilla could opt out at that point.
Yep.
All of that being said, we need to have as much hard information as we can get, so we can make our own contacts with the state or whomever.
Yeah.
So we can start going through that process, and we only have 30 days to do it, approximately. Then we can.
Yeah.
we can have a
And I
conversation.
don't know how much even what the county's role is, if there is a role for the county, other than advocating on behalf of our citizens at this
Well, we
point
want
in
to
time.
make sure we do that. We want to make sure we go down fighting.
Yeah.
If we're gonna go down.
Obviously, there's a role in case if public health was involved. There's a role if DSS was involved, even if it's people out there distributing these things, whatever. I mean, you're engaged in it. So there's a place for us in this process.
To
right now.
advocate, yeah, absolutely, to advocate for those citizens, to ensure that they get the food that they need, especially in these times, because they're on such fixed income, that little bit of food really does bridge the gap for them. So that's my thing, but just want to make sure you guys knew, like I said, I only learned of that when I was contacting Vivian for the personnel issue in my office. That's how I found out. Otherwise, I don't know that I would have known. So,
I'll leave that with Carmen.
yep, me too.
So.
and
We
just-
approved the Delta contract, or yes, we did. didn't we?
Yep. And then the only other things to let you guys know that I posted the office manager IT position internally. At this point in time, I don't believe that it would be met outside, as well as it having somebody who already knows the internal functions. So I will see what I get and what applications, and then I'll go from there. But currently I'm doing both jobs. So
Yeah,
and
you're
put,
doing both.
yeah, it's taken a toll. So
Challenging.
it's a lot of hours. So that's where I'm at.
So you need to work on that.
I am working very quickly on trying to do that, but you can't replace somebody who would have been there 25 years
Yeah.
very easily. So
Jill, if you need help with any, if I need to follow up with Vivian or anything.
I'll
ahead of
just to
time,
see you guys.
Please let us know.
Yeah, no, I just didn't want that major issue
Yeah.
happening and you guys not knowing. I was pretty shocked when I learned of it a week ago. So, anything else that you guys got? Good.
Thank you.
All right.
Joy.
Yep.
Okay. Now we're getting down to the general business. First item here on the agenda is approval of appointment to the Rio Grande District or Rio Grande Library District Board. I assume you've seen that. They had a recommendation.
Yes. And the recommendation was Suzanne Beauchesne. Is that the correct name?
It's,
The way I
should be.
remember it?
Yeah, it's
And I don't know her or anything, but I would be willing to take the recommendation of the library board, and I would move that we approve.
second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we got it. Appointment to the Weed District Board, Rebecca Kolb.
We went through that process at the weed district meeting the night, and Rebecca actually was there for the meeting. Very well spoken in the meeting. She was really excited about being on the board. So my recommendation is we approve it as recommended.
And that was a motion?
Yep.
I would second that.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Review and decision on the coroner pickup topper quotes.
Can I ask a question before you move on to that? With respect to those appointments, have you done letters of appointment by the board or resolutions? And do you need me to draft anything to reflect the appointment that the board just made? Appointments that the board just made.
I think it would be appropriate to have a resolution that appointed him,
I
wouldn't
think a
it?
resolution would be the best way to codify that. I didn't know what the past practice was. I believe your beginning of the year appointments are all done by resolution. So I would advise that that would be a good way to do it unless there's a better way that's been done in the past.
Well, if a resolution requires another vote, signatures for us, right? So kicks the can down the road another couple of weeks.
You can make it the effective date today. If that's a resolution, you can also say, you know what, we voted, it's in the record, and then submit a letter of appointment that would reflect that.
Because if we do a resolution here, we have to do a vote on that resolution. So we're not just ratifying today's decision necessarily.
Correct.
Point.
But we could do a resolution effective today.
Yes.
I think a resolution stays in the record better, is my thought.
Minutes are minutes, they stay in there just as long.
Well, in the past, the only ones that got resolutions was the weed board, the library board, and like tourism board, planning commission. In the past, when I was here, they just did a letter saying you've been appointed to this term for starting here to ending here, and welcome aboard. And we sent it to the board secretary and to the person. But I don't know how you notify the person. You send them a resolution.
Well, I think notifying them is one thing. You can easily notify them in writing or even a verbal, but I think maintaining that record of their appointment and their official capacity to serve is what's the most important in terms of preserving the record. So you're saying the weed board was the only one that was done by resolution?
Yeah, for boards.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the only one we actually did.
Okay.
Resolution.
Is
There
there-
was a letter confirmation that you were appointed as of this date by the Board of County
But
Commissioners.
it's in the minutes anyhow, that we voted for a position, and it should be understood what the term is. And that the minutes are as preserved as resolutions are.
Yes,
Yes.
but I don't see any reason to deviate from that practice. My recommendation for take it or leave it, is to maintain the current practice of, or the existing practice of making an appointment to the weed board by way of a resolution. And then for the appointments that you just made for the library, appointment that you just made for the library board, sending a letter of appointment.
Okay, and that will be referenced in the minutes for the library board, resolution for the weed board.
Yeah.
So logistics wise, it's effective today.
Effective today, I'll have it proposed for September 16th, if you're okay with that.
Okay, September 16th board meeting. However, that individual starts occupying that position as of today.
Right.
So we'll have a resolution on the September 16th agenda. The library board, just a letter to the individual, and it's referenced in the
And do
minutes.
you have name and addresses for these people?
It's in the documents that Bobby sent out, at least for
Okay.
the library board. I didn't see the weed.
I've got,
The weed board,
Let's see if
so
I
I
get
can get them from her, because I didn't pull up all. And you want me to go ahead and write that letter effective today, or did you want Ryan to do it?
I'd be happy to prepare the resolution. It seems like the letter would be easy enough if you've got a template.
I have a template that I can do.
that's your weed district.
Okay, that's we just, it's the, and you can have that, and I assume Rebecca knows.
Well, she hadn't been appointed yet until just now.
Okay. Well, I can, if you want me to do both of them, and
And we can do the resolution
resolution and the
later.
resolution just stays in our file, it just.
All right, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Topper quotes. You had a chance to look at them. Is there any discussion on that?
I had a little bit, I called Steven this morning and talked to him a little bit about these quotes. You'll notice the one from Space Cap is, the price on it's $98.75.
Mhm.
The other one is priced at $48.35. So I asked him what the difference was. Basically, the biggest difference between the two of them is that the Space Cap is built to go a lot longer period of time, and you can take it off of a Ford and put it on a Chevy, on a Dodge, whatever you do. If you trade down the line, that thing will interchange for all the boxes. And I said, well, how does that work? And he said he didn't ask him, but they will work. Unless somebody does really something stupid with their boxes in the next few years, it shouldn't interchange anything. We'd probably replace the truck with. Well, it's a brand new truck, so I don't know how soon we'll be replacing it anyway. So, but it has a couple more items on it that the other one doesn't. He said he didn't have a preference. He's not trying to wheel or deal for either one, but I want to let you know what the biggest thing was in the price range.
So that interchangeability, I mean, basically, what do we have, a 6-foot bed? It's gotta be a 7-foot or 8-foot bed on the truck.
Yeah. It's,
8 foot
Okay.
on the
so-
topper, that's what it's quoting
So
as
we're
8 foot.
looking at an 8-foot topper. You're gonna C-clamp it on there anyhow, right?
this,
It's gotta be something better
It'll
than
be,
six
it'll
clamps.
be, they have a hard clamp thing they do for them, but it'll be either turnbuckle style or something. Like that, yeah. The thing about it, it has the workability on this thing. It has, the only thing I saw in here is they put on a deal on this one that I don't think the other one had, and that is a reinforcement at the end of the deal. So when you slide the cart in, if it hits in, it doesn't break into the fire or into the fiberglass wall.
Fiberglass the other end. That's the more expensive
Yeah.
model.
Another thing that I wondered about is on the other one, the ARE,
Mhm.
is it had all of the details for the items. It had some of them scratched off, and then it gave a dollar amount at the bottom as an approximate. That
Well,
is somewhat concerning to
well,
me.
the approximate part is this, because I asked that question. The approximate part has to do with the fact the $7,800 is if you bought this topper with everything in there, it's $7,800. So the stuff that they deleted is stuff he didn't think he needed on the camper or the shell. So he took it off there. It brought it down to $48.35. The approximate reason that's wrote in there is if you want to go back and add anything to it, it could change that price if you added something to it. Like you want to, maybe you decided when to put the beacons in there, then it changes the price of beacons. That's why they wrote it up from the dealership as approximate. This price will be what the price is if that's what we decide to go with. Nothing
So it's
changes.
basically $5,000.
Yeah.
And the other one's 9,000 plus,
Yeah, it's $98.75.
so it's 10,000.
So did the coroner have a preference?
He wants to get one put on there. It is his biggest thing, but if he was buying it himself, the space cap is the one he'd go with just because of the longevity and usability. The other one, the ARE, if you were to put it on a different truck, you would have to fit it to that truck some way, tie it down, rope it on, whatever, because it will not transfer to the box to box. So to answer your question, if he was, I would say the space cap is probably his preference. If that's a better answer than what I gave you.
And do we know offhand what amount we had in the budget figured for that?
I don't know, and I honestly don't remember, and I couldn't find the sheet on it.
Didn't we go a little over on the vehicle?
I am,
The cores on the new vehicle?
That sounds right.
I think we get, well, it was whatever the state bid was. I don't remember how we did on that, but I'd have to pull all that to find out.
So I suspect that we may be short. in that account. I don't know.
I didn't pull that because I thought Stephen was going to be here with the information, but he had a service he had to do today, so he couldn't make it to the meeting. So
Yeah, it looks like you, $2,091 is over. Because you budgeted 26,000 and I'm just looking at capital expenditures. And it's at 27,091 right now, so you're $2,000 over in capital expenditure.
So we don't even have room in the budget for the topper at all, do we? Is that what you're
No.
saying?
That's what I'm looking at. I mean, right now, you never know how many deaths you're going to have. Your pathologist is, you've got about 12,000 left.
So we could do a supplemental and move.
And
it.
you can move within line items.
As long as nobody dies.
Right. Well, hopefully you don't have twice as number of deaths as you had up to now, and you're the 7th month. He hasn't done any registrations. There's 2,500 there.
What we have had is an indigent burial.
Yeah, 5,910. That's not budgeted.
Two indigent burial? Oh, one was taken care of.
One was taken
yeah.
care of.
So you do have a run over on that line item because you had nothing put in there. So you got a $6,000 run over there. Capital, you have 2,000. So you're 8,000 over. So that pretty well
takes care of the 12,000.
Yeah. Their part-time helps down a little bit. But
yeah, when we figured this new truck, we had figured, and I don't remember where we got the numbers from. We had figured the number for the truck, and I know we went over whatever that was, but we had also figured there was money enough to do the topper in there. I don't remember how we figured it. I know it had to come from a supplement somewhere.
Well, part of it was we figured a used truck initially.
and you had
We were talking
2,000.
about that.
Yeah, you had 2,000 budgeted for repairs. And you only spent $210. So that $1,800 will all basically offset your over expenditure for the truck.
The truck that we purchased.
So yeah. So as long as he doesn't have any major problems on the truck, being a new one, it should be under warranty, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it would be, you have to make up the 6,000 off the burial. So you about have another, if we don't have a lot of pathologists, you have about 6,000 left in pathologists for the rest.
And that's
of the
about
year.
it for the entire department, isn't it?
There'll be little bucks here and there, but
Well, if we were going to authorize the expenditure and we have to take it from somewhere else, where else are we in the budget that we have that option? That's a bigger question.
you have also $500 in miscellaneous that hasn't been used for him too.
So basically, in my opinion, if we want to do anything, that we sure as heck better go with the less expensive one, because there's not really room in the budget for the $9,000 or $10,000 one.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing one way or the other on it.
I'm just questioning if there's really room for any of them, or if
I'm
we
really
should
trying to
wait
figure out
until
how
next year.
we didn't have room to, well, that, we need to get something on that truck, because that's when they got so they could take the
Hauling
trips.
over to Colorado
Yeah.
Springs and stuff.
But and maybe January would be
Maybe
good.
use a tarp until January. Well, I don't, because I think you have to keep them, you can't let them freeze is the way I remember. You have to keep them kind of temperature controlled.
I
So a
don't
tarp
know.
may not work, but-
I've seen them haul frozen bodies.
Well, I'm wondering if we should wait until we can have the discussion with Stephen.
Well, if we do that, I mean, whether it's a 10,000 or a 5,000, either way, we're bumping up against the budget. We're already got a problem
Correct.
here. And then we're gonna have to probably take money out of someplace else in the county to cover it. And I'm kind of blind right now as to how we're doing in the rest of the county.
And I'll be getting those, Debbie's getting a lot of stuff for budget ready to go to get out, and I can run down and look at it. I mean, the thing is, right now, you had almost 6,000 that you didn't even unanticipated with those burials. All the time I was here, we maybe had a couple $100 worse than a year or something like that. But I mean, that's unforeseen, and it's really hard to say, okay, then now we won't move ahead.
We could do it at the end of the year if the money was left over.
And that burial was not COVID related, was it?
No, it was not. And
Unfortunately, I don't think we could.
we
pull
all,
out of agreement.
too, and the other part, Suzanne, you weren't here for those conversations. We're running up against specifically the Vietnam era vets that are broke at Home Lake. And we had two of them. One of them, they found a relative somewhere, just by luck. The mortuary found them. So we were doing bids for each one, thinking, well, we only do one every 10 years. Well, we had two within a month or two of each other. And there's a high probability, in my estimation, knowing the population in Home Lake, that we're going to see more of these showing up. Now, when? I don't know. But these guys are 70s to their 80s. And a lot of them have no money.
Yeah. And the Veterans Association or the Home Lake has no emergency burial or anything.
The VA does pay for
A small
some
portion.
Like
portions.
200.
If they're eligible, but if they had a less than honorable discharge,
Yeah.
they aren't eligible for that, but they are eligible to be at Home Lake.
Well, and this guy, I think, probably shouldn't have been at Home Lake. I think they determined after the fact, oh, he didn't meet the criteria. He's been here forever, but
Yeah.
too late now. We're not going to bury him. And I don't necessarily agree with their approach on that, but
Well, but even if he hadn't been in Home Lake, he'd
Yeah.
be living under a bridge in Monty, he would still have a problem.
Well, and I think the thing is right now for that $6,000, that's unexpected. It's something that you're probably going to have to amend the budget anyway, because, his budget, I mean, that's a good portion. I mean,
It's a challenge.
5% of his budget went right there just for the burials.
Jane, I'm wondering if our thought was at the time, because I think we were talking about a used vehicle. And I'm wondering if we weren't thinking that amount would be a used vehicle and a topper in that same, because that would make sense.
Quotes. We did think about the used vehicle, but I had it as two separate quotes on the sheet originally. But irregardless, if we can't do it, if we have to wait, I mean, even if we said we were going to do it today, it's not going to happen for a month or two anyway. So we'll know a little bit more of the budget. So if we wait for a meeting or whatever, that's fine. Talk to Stephen, see where we're at. But
Is there a deadline on the bids that are?
that's what I was looking for, and I don't see on here. It doesn't give which really surprises me the way everything is. Yeah, it doesn't give a particular.
The fine print at the bottom of this one is in French, just saying. Might say something.
In French, which one you looked at? Space Cap?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's why I couldn't read it.
You just thought you were having problems with your eyesight, huh?
I'm trying to explain. Well, I think we just need to go, we probably ought to go ahead and just table this in for the time being. I'll visit with Stephen. That's my motion.
Motion to table the topper decision.
Yes.
Suzanne will have.
We have a second. All in favor of tabling? Do we have a date that we're tabling it to?
The next meeting,
Well, I'm not sure we'll be ready by then.
the 16th of September.
Yeah, let's try that because the next one will push it past the 30-day in case there is a 30-day period attached to these
Okay.
somewhere we
Yeah.
don't have.
So
And see
September
if Stephen
16th.
couldn't be here for that discussion.
Table. Okay, of
Would it be okay if we took a small break
course it would.
between the next?
The question is, taking a look at the agenda, what do we want to do about how to run the rest of this? Ryan, how much time do you need in the executive session?
I estimated 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay, Suzanne, do you have things you want to discuss there?
Yeah, and if we don't have a lot of discussion, we can move through this pile pretty fast, but I just wanted to get some of this stuff moved off, and if you want to move me down to somewhere else and, I don't know what. all
Well, it's just,
it is.
we used to actually take lunch. Come
Well.
back.
And I don't know what amount of time Tony's gonna need either.
Well, we're going to talk about that in just a second. Why don't you go ahead? We've got two more items here, these two resolutions which we'll go through quickly. Administrator and Gene maintenance, which would be pretty basic, I think.
Give this back to her before I lose it. So you're on a break right now?
It's gonna be all over the place.
Yeah.
It's a knockout. Right quick, if we're back online, breaks over. All right. The first one is naming Suzanne Benton as the interim county administrator. Have you had a chance to review that?
Yes, I have.
Oh, yes.
Okay. We have a motion on that?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Resolution appointing Gene Glover as the commissioner,
Managing Commissioner for the Maintenance Department.
managing commissioner for the maintenance department.
And this is retroactive to the July 29th excuse me, the July 29th meeting, which time he was actually appointed. And I think it was supposed to have been on the August 12th agenda, and it just was an oversight on my part when it wasn't on there. But just to formalize that resolution.
Okay, so you all understand what he's talking about. I'll take a motion.
I would make that motion.
Okay, I'll make the second.
Thank you.
You bet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And then on the resolution appointing Suzanne, have you guys figured out a salary and?
Yes, we have.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
I don't know.
You got a letter to payroll?
No, I don't have a letter.
Okay. I just didn't know
Oh,
if there needed
yes.
to be a letter.
Yes, you do. Better have.
Yes, I do. There it is. I did them back and that was in one of my stuff.
Did we decide to move Tony to someplace else?
No, we didn't. What I did is I'd written these two in earlier when we did the movement.
Oh, okay.
On the agenda. No, we didn't.
I
move
thought
that.
we were moving down here.
Okay, so we haven't approved this yet. This is basically the compensation agreement.
Yes.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve.
Let me see what it says. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I need to date this, Ryan?
It says retroactive to the 12th, so I think it's fine. You don't, there's no harm if you do.
No, there's no advantage to doing it either. Okay.
No, it'll go to payroll and also.
And it's dated on the memo.
Okay, so we've done that. That brings us down to public health. Tony Stewart, she's got CVRF. What else do you have for us, Tony?
All that I've got is the CVRF.
I'm sorry, what?
All that I've got is the CVRF,
Okay,
and that's not public health, so that would need to be.
that's not a public health item. That's a grant. That's under administrative items and under grant. Okay, what have you got?
Okay, yeah.
Come on up.
Sure.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna, Suzanne, these came in and I think the administrator's been signing these.
Yeah.
From the supervisor. Question I had is there's a block there for the chairman to sign and we've not been signing that. Instead, we've been signing this. packet
Right,
over here.
yeah, the overall summary, and that's fine, because
Okay,
you could spend your life signing this down.
right. Thank
Okay, so I sent you guys an email, a few emails, letting you know what I was gonna work on. So I've got some things, the application, I've got the facts, and I've gone through some of what,
Applications for what?
the CVRF.
No, I mean.
If we were to go forward, this would be applications for businesses to apply for funds.
And these forms, did you come up with them or they?
I came up with them, but I borrowed heavily from other governments doing the same. I didn't forget to.
I've got that.
Application. So this application that you're seeing in paper is a Google form. And that is an email draft, and I'll kind of knock through the 3 different parts of this
Okay, and this is coming in the form of a recommendation?
So I did talk to the city and town managers. And as far as splitting up the funds, they kept their recommendation that Rio Grande County would be administering all of those funds that are outside of their actual costs that they want reimbursed through their municipalities. So they wouldn't be looking to do mini grants within their towns or anything like that. They would be looking for their own costs. So we wouldn't be dividing the money into 4 pots that then they would allow people in the town to draw from. They would be one of the entities that would submit for reimbursement from the county.
So the business, if we're going to do business recovery type
Yeah,
grants, yeah, we're talking grants, not loans.
grants only, yes.
Um,
I would not be able to manage loans.
You know, and we're talking about how to manage this going forward anyhow, right, Suzanne? We've had a conversation about that. But if we're just going to do grants, what you're saying is that even those businesses that are inside of municipal boundaries will not be applying to the municipality, they would be applying directly to the county.
Right. They don't have the capacity, and that's kind of where they've stood the whole time, is they don't have the capacity to do that.
Well, they need to make that statement public to the people, quite frankly.
I kind of feel like where we're at, we don't really have the capacity either.
Those conversations are taking place right now about what capacity means. And so did you talk to DRG at all, or any of those people that are doing the business loans and business grants?
Yes. So we had talked about the different funding available. One of the stipulations for this would be that any funding that would be awarded wouldn't be able to be, can't have already been placed on something else. So if you did a payroll protection program application and you were awarded those funds, you wouldn't then be able to apply for CVRF funds for your payroll for that same payroll.
For that same period.
Right. For the same people in that period. You're not going to be able to double dip on the funding. So one of the questions is what other assistance have
So
you
who did you
received?
speak with there at DRG?
Now I'm drawing a blank. The gentleman who came and talked to us at the very beginning. He's actually, yeah, with the Office of
Economic Development and International Trade.
International. Yeah, I knew that one was in there. Yep.
And this may or may not be in his department.
So his idea was that if we had some projects or programs that we were going to try and go forward with this funding, he's happy to come in and work with us or work with those groups. So if we wanted to break down kind of what I would recommend for the funding is that we would have 4 opportunities for potentially up to $50,000 for chambers of commerce or economic development groups to make a project proposal for this funding that would follow in the rules and could be like South Fork did their coupon program, and Del Norte actually did a buy a meal program. So something similar to that, or an innovative idea that we haven't come up with yet.
How much money again? You said, yeah,
That would be $50,000 for each of those, up to. So part of this grant is going to be that we do have to have receipts for everything. There's no banking this money. So my guess is that the proposals are going to come in fairly low because that is a pretty big expectation. So you can't bank anything. You have to have receipts all the way back from March.
Okay, and we haven't had any conversations other than the initial ones with the municipalities, specifically the economic recovery side of it. So when Dan Hicks came and talked to us, I'm not sure whose money they used, for instance, on the.
Right, they used
buyback.
funds from the town.
That was town money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Del Norte, town money.
They they didn't put any money into that yet. So they ran a program saying that if you go into a business, these businesses are cooperating where if you pay for an extra meal, they'll take that and they'll give it to somebody in need or somebody who's working hard in the COVID response.
But that's the
or-
restaurant and customer.
Right. So they could expand that. They could look at doing something that supplemented that. Really, they would come up with the idea. And then our job would be to say if it fits within the rules, if it's allowable and it's reasonable, and then we would approve based on that. So
Is Monte Vista done? They send
I don't know
the
what
bill
they've
for
done
everything.
specifically.
They send
but
us
they-
that invoice or whatever you want to call it.
So their actual expenses for CVRF, that's a different kind of pot. So what I'm talking about with that $50,000, those are for chambers or business organizations coming together with a collective opportunity for their community to say that this is how we want to help those businesses that have been impacted. This is our idea. It's
Okay.
not ours as the county.
When you do
It's
a,
theirs.
if we do, let's just say an incentive program for the restaurants, trying to sell more meals, however
Sure.
we do it. Okay, they're probably already operating at capacity anyhow. Under code restrictions, 50%, 30%, what have you.
Sure.
So how can we benefit them other than just giving them money?
Okay, so there are a couple of different arguments there. First off, what we're proposing is that those organizations that represent multiple businesses within their community, those are going to come together and they're going to propose an idea to us on this is how we benefit these businesses. This is how we help with the loss of revenue. And then our job is to determine if that's allowable within the funding
Okay,
requirements.
what if a business, I'm gonna take a laundry. Business is way down because resorts aren't started to open late and all this and cut into their revenue significantly.
Right.
And what would be a normal year where they would do equipment replacement, things of this nature, dryers, washers, whatever. They're unable to do it and they're limping along,
Mhm.
barely keeping the doors open. They're not part of one of these business
Right.
organizations. We always think of restaurants and those kind of hospitality things. But what about the nuts and bolts person on the street?
So if you don't mind, I'll go through kind of the portions that I was thinking about for that. So these kind of the chambers and the economic recovery organizations, the economic Upper Rio Grande Economic Development Council is one that they could potentially apply for that. So that's over here. This email draft that you see here, that's the approach to them. Really would want them to submit a unique proposal. And then this that you see here, this is for specific funds for businesses. And kind of the model that's gone down in different municipalities is breaking that into two, which makes a lot of sense. So there's the loss of revenue funding, and then there's PPE or infrastructure reimbursement. So if your restaurant purchased a case of masks and you had to buy many more gloves for your staff, or you had to put up a plexiglass screen, those kind of things would be reimbursable under this second section, which would be the PPE reimbursable. The loss of revenue, they're going to be required to demonstrate the loss of revenue either by multiple year profit and loss statements and balance statements, or just a mirror from 2019 to 2020 showing that this is our loss of revenue. So from March to March, this is going to kind of show what we would have anticipated we were going to bring in, and this is what we did bring in. So that's going to set us at kind of a base of what that funding amount could be, with these applications not going for anything over $20,000. So with
And
that,
that number was set by what, that 20,000?
so it was kind of breaking down what I was seeing across the state. In some of the larger areas, they have set aside much larger grants for really big employers, and we could look at that. But I think our focus would be kind of our average employers, and that was what I was finding as an average response. And we also want to make sure that any of these that we would be putting out by December 15th, we would have to have all of those receipts in hand. So like I said, even though it's a loss of revenue, there's no way that you can bank these funds. We need to have all of that demonstrated. So if you were going to purchase your washer and dryer for your dry cleaning business, and that was due somehow to a COVID response, then yeah, you're going to submit that receipt. if you have a demonstrated loss of revenue and you can submit to us your mortgage or your utility bills that you haven't been able to pay those the way you would have normally. So that bill is going to qualify. You can send that into us and we can cover that with those funds.
So if you have a demonstrated loss of revenue and demonstrated through profit and loss statements or something like that, you still have to have invoices
For every dollar.
that say, I had to pay for all of these other things.
Yeah, so something you had to pay for, or your regular bills, or your staffing, if that hasn't been covered by some other federal source.
This is gonna get to the point where nobody's gonna take advantage of it.
Potentially. I
Okay,
think it's
but
going to
that's
require a
because the way
lot
it's
of
structured.
communication.
If we start making this like other government programs, people are not, they're gonna be intimidated by it.
Right, so
Okay.
that's communication, and that's
No,
part
it's
of
it's
what
not
you have to do.
communication, it's listening to them, if that's communication, and seeing what works for them, because this is a top-down thing, and we need to be on the street, talking to those individuals, either they come to us through urged or something else, and finding out what works for them, because we can't anticipate. And one of our problems with some of these grants, we end up throwing away money, giving it away inappropriately whenever there was a real need out here that went unmet, that would have qualified. So I'm going to use a laundromat thing. A dryer's 20 grand.
Was it
Okay.
budgeted last year?
Huh?
Did you have it in your budget? Were you planning on buying it?
I don't know because it just broke this month.
Then no,
But
you
I
weren't.
can't buy it.
Yes, you can.
Okay, but it may have been budgeted, but I couldn't because my revenue dropped off.
That's unfortunate. It doesn't qualify for this program.
You sure?
Yes,
Under your rules or under CBRS
under
rules?
their rules.
That,
It cannot have been previously budgeted ahead of March.
well, guess what? Their rent, their utilities were all budgeted ahead of time. And so either it is or it isn't. I'm sorry if I'm hard on this because this, if somebody came to me with this, I'd say, I don't even want to talk to you. Okay, even though I had a need. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work. And this is another one of those, sorry guys for going off on this, all you folks, that doesn't work. And we need a program that works. And we need to think
However,
about it.
the grant, the way it's structured, everything has to have receipts, and it's all a reimbursement grant. So that's how it's set up from the federal government.
That's
And so
not the point.
we can't change.
That's
that
not what we're
process.
arguing about. What we're arguing about right now was it budgeted. A while ago, she said things like mortgages, rent, all that, or utilities. Those are all budgeted.
So
Are we saying now they're not eligible, or are they eligible?
to add another layer of complication in this, Article 11 of the Colorado Constitution prohibits a government from giving funds, public funds, to a business. And so there's some case, which is essentially what we would be doing by a grant program. And there's no doubt that other counties are doing this and developing this program. So I'm not disputing that whatsoever. The question has come up about the constitutionality of doing that if you're having to take out of your general fund or other funds allocated from the general fund to pay a business for expenses. There's some case law that basically, and one of the sections describes, it can be done potentially if it's for a public purpose. So if you can somehow articulate that that is for a public purpose, then the suggestion is that the board could pass a resolution stating why that furthers a public purpose so that you can allow that funding to go out. But public funds can't be used just for a business. And so to some extent, as I'm listening to you describe this, if you had to go out and you had to purchase, plexiglass and masks and whatever, things that obviously weren't budgeted last year, and also serve the public purpose of not spreading disease, I think that's an easy way to articulate. And I'm not saying that you can't somehow articulate a public purpose in reimbursing lost revenues or whatever, but you would have to be very careful about somehow articulating a public purpose for the granting of that money to a particular business before it looks like the county is just giving general funds and public funds to a private entity.
So that would be an economic recovery response to COVID-19, I think would be what we would propose that these funds are being used for.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just think that you wouldn't want to paint with a really broad brush. You would want to specifically identify how each allocation would be for a public purpose.
This program, if we're gonna do it at all, is gonna have to be developed, not in this office, but in collaboration. And my concern on your reference, 'cause we're using US Treasury dollars on this, and they're the ones that set the guidelines. Where our public money gets involved is we have to spend the money ahead of time and then get reimbursed. So one is, do we have $1 million to distribute and wait for our money to come back? Two
So
is,
these
can
would
we
be
do it
reimbursed.
under the Constitution? And those questions need to be asked.
Is-
Otherwise, we might just go, it's a non-starter.
Is this the program that I'm getting programs confused. Is this the program where they said that they would be reimbursed rather quickly, like within a couple, 3 weeks or some, I mean,
That's an
really quick.
anticipation. I can't,
Yeah.
we haven't seen it, so I can't.
DOLA
say
has
for
not
sure.
committed to that.
I can't remember which program it was that I had heard
I
that it
think
would
this
be.
was anticipated to be a much quicker turnaround than FEMA,
Okay.
but I don't know if they provided a
Well,
specific.
it's
And
only
so-
3 years.
But DOLA wouldn't guarantee anything.
Okay, so I'm not sure I understand how it would work is if all of the receipts have to be in by December 15th
Mhm.
and all of our requests for reimbursement by December 30th, I believe,
Yes.
is then you would fall between 2 years. Because I have a feeling that it's,
Sure.
you're
Yeah.
gonna end up
You'll get your
being
check
past
in
that.
January.
right, and possibly past the period 13, so that I'm not sure how that's going to affect our budget process, et cetera. And if we do that, we're also gonna have to have a supplemental in order to cover the whatever we have to pay out.
Mhm.
Just saying, those are my observations.
One of the questions I had right at the very beginning, when this money first came out, is, first of all, counties can use it
Mhm.
for our stuff. Okay. South Dakota tried to fund the state troopers with it. I don't know how that came out. Pre-budgeted. I don't know how that played out. The governor said she was doing it. We'll find out. Okay. DOLA wouldn't give us a clear answer. They deferred it to the US Treasury guidelines. But what I was asking early on was, let's just take the TV screen that we were going to buy as an example.
Yeah.
Which pot of money did we take that out of all these funds that are available? And at the end of the day, in all the conversation, we still don't have a TV screen. And we haven't acted on it while we sit there and muddle around. The CRVF money was the most liberal, least restricted funds available through this COVID crisis response. Okay. And we want to be creative with it, but let's make sure that we've tapped the other sources of revenue for the TV monitor, whatever it is we need to buy. And we haven't clearly identified strong needs here. Maybe we don't have any. Our needs maybe not qualify. We need cop cars and we need money for this and that, which we can't get out of these programs.
So we're also going to need to talk to the sheriff. From what I heard this morning is that will be good. Are the calls increasing somehow because people are isolated or because people have less access to activities? If that's true, then we can talk about the fit with this. If it's not due to COVID and there's no really tangible link, then we can't. But that's in their guidance.
I don't know. And we haven't sat down and actually had a task force approach to this. Let's take, for instance, several departments were buying their own PPE.
Right.
Was one of the complaints we got.
And we've reached out to them to let them know that we need them to send those receipts.
Okay, but they shouldn't have had to been doing that in the first place.
Sure.
But we've got masks sitting over here in the corner that we bought. Okay. That wasn't communicated. What did the sheriff's department have to buy for PPE? What things did they have to do at that time? And reaching out to them, I guess, is what you do, but we need to have a clearly defined, this is what we're trying to accomplish, guys. And it can't be buried in bureaucratic language. It's just like, did you do this, 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 or this? Now, when you look at the reports from the sheriff, the biggest increase on the sheriff's calls were trespass charges. Trespass complaints. It just happened to be 300% or something like that this year. I didn't get a chance to ask him because he was busy trying to tell us everything else and we were running out of time. But I don't know that he has that, but we don't
Right.
have we don't have a method of reaching out right now to say, each college department and say, what happened? And be creative about it, not just, did you buy a box of masks? What
Right.
else did you have to do out of the ordinary? And we've been having this struggle since day one. On the 214s, and did it qualify, did it not? We had the mix up down in public health about who was really working on what, between the grants and between COVID. Whether it was the baby and meat tobacco free person working on this or not. And I don't know how that played out. I don't know how that came through the system. We haven't seen it here at this desk. And so I'm concerned that there's a lot of built-in confusion here that doesn't have to be here on any of these programs. But I don't want to burn up this money on things that other monies are available for if we have a use for this money, and I don't feel it's appropriate for us to spend it because it's here. It needs to have a measurable benefit. And the people I've talked to on the street, yeah, I could use some help, but I'm getting conflicting messages on, is it eligible or not?
Sure. That's why I've brought the rules. We can go case by case. I know we were concerned about the county staffing. That question was actually asked exactly and answered. So whether or not you
And the
can
answer
hire
came
someone.
from
This is DOLA's
FAQs.
Q&A. Yeah.
And it
And I
was answered.
talked to Christy.
Did we get clarification on
Yeah,
that?
she said as long as it wasn't a budgeted person that was their job to do, or that, and I explained what we had here, and she says, yes, it's eligible. You can go out and hire somebody just to do this grant. And it's.
And that answer was 2 months in coming.
So it was
yeah.
answered on June 24th.
Yeah, and I didn't find the stuff in the file, so.
When I talked to her in July, she was uncomfortable with the veracity of that and kept deferring it to it. She said, yeah, it's in the FAQs and the indication is, but she would not commit to it based on the information she had.
Well, she committed me, but I don't have it in writing.
Yeah.
But and then the only other thing else besides the 2 towns, Cindy Hill submitted all the stuff for her COBA, that if that would be eligible. So she has invoices and everything else. It's basically to build the screens and all the other stuff. But she did submit that with all the invoices and everything, but it's about $1,200.
Yeah, I was talking fairly negligible amounts.
$1,300.
And there was another source of funds for those activities.
I'm not sure what that was.
It was one of the early programs.
So the
CBRF was a late arrival.
The public health funds wouldn't be able to pay for any of those others, and that's all I'm actually aware of for COVID response, but there's very likely something else.
I mean, things like the payroll protection program and all, there was a whole bunch of other programs out there under the CARES Act. That's why I said, we keep talking about CARES Act as if it's just this one tranche of money. It's an umbrella.
Sure.
Or it's a waterfall, if you will, with several channels in it.
Right.
And I never saw the clear areas of overlap and distinction. That's why I asked. But when we bought the OWL, it didn't come out of CVRF money. Should not have. Okay.
Potentially, you went to online meetings as a response to shutting
But
down.
it wasn't CVRF funding that we were going to tap for that.
Right. That's fine.
Okay. And the same thing with what Cindy did downstairs or any of the other
Right.
departments. That was a separate tranche of money. But I've never seen it defined here to us that this grant is paying for these things.
Yeah, all of the things that you've talked about for the other departments, those qualify under this funding. We
This.
can definitely reimburse.
I'm
for
trying to
those
separate
expenses.
this. I'm trying to pull this over and say, when we bought all these things, we were looking at a different grant or a different source of funds.
I'm not sure what that would have been.
Was that FEMA?
It was either FEMA, there were half a dozen things that came down all at once, and we never got clarification. But there was always this, if we do this, we can reimburse.
I guess the next relevant question would be, have those, so I'm guessing that the answer to my question is no, but did we submit for reimbursement from FEMA if we purchased the OWL with the intention of it being reimbursed by FEMA? Did it get submitted to FEMA? And then are we going to wait 2 or 3 years? And if it hasn't been submitted, can we lump that in with the CBRF?
Right.
So we need to have answers to
None
those
of that
questions.
has been submitted. I have Trish's
We're
folders.
falling down here because before CVRF before we even heard of that. There was FEMA and there were other programs. And Trish recommended that if we could fund out of the other programs and ask for reimbursement, to go with them because FEMA potentially could take so long. So I don't know what those other programs were. We never got the breakdown. I remember I kept asking, will you give me a list of the programs? And somewhere there's a list. And so
What's the
before we
date?
start spending this, I would suggest that we
Well,
find out
She said
what's here.
on
You gave us a
July
list,
2nd.
public health and CVRF.
Correct.
Okay, CVRF is not public health.
Right.
Okay, so it shouldn't be on that list. Public health stands over here. There's another list for CARES Act money specifically for all these other things.
For the
we're talking about.
counties?
Not
Oh,
just
because
counties,
that's
just
kind of
stuff.
why we're in this section. So
Municipalities,
the-
individuals, PPE, went through a program, which went to, not PPE, PPP.
Right.
For individuals, and people can go to their bank, borrow the money, and be taken care of.
Right.
Okay, that system was set up in a matter of days.
And
Yeah, I
that's,
don't think
right, and I
And
don't know if we're
DRG
gonna
handled
qualify
it.
or not.
DRG was on top of it. I won't say they handled it, they were on top of it, and they give advice, and the banks knew a lot. The Delnor Bank gave us good information,
Sure.
a grid. These are the various programs, and this is what the money can be used for, but they were looking at from the banker's perspective, and are the individuals gonna go to them for a loan?
Right.
I would suggest you do like DRG if people need money out of CVRF funds for business, if we can do it, of course, Ryan. You go to the bank and say, have you got people you couldn't fund? And reach out to them because we may have money for them.
That's fine. The
But
rules
that
are
would
gonna
be
be
an
the
option, but
same.
that, we need to do a step back and do an inventory of what we got.
And I'm guessing that's not a public health function so much as administrative
It's
function.
straight up administrative.
Right.
But where we're crossing the line here is she's really our grant administrator, TDY down to public health.
Gotcha, I see what you're saying.
However, whenever she moved to public health, didn't that change her
No.
position? Or are you still the total grant administrator in addition?
As far as I know, yes, and that's definitely a conversation, just like last time we got together, that I want to have. I need clarification. This is not sustainable.
No, it isn't sustainable. And that's why we were
Um,
talking, Suzanne Benton and I discussed about the possibility of, do we need to hire somebody and do we have time to specifically for CVRF?
Yes.
That
And I
90,000.
think, for the short period of time and the deadlines, you're going to have to hire somebody that will do nothing but that. Because, and I didn't know how much you were touching, like, Jean Borrego's as that, and I don't know what other grants that are in Debbie's office. I haven't had time to look at them, and she hasn't had time to show me. So, but I think for the right now, if you want to go ahead with CVRF and limit it to what this 996,000 is, then you need to hire somebody that is going to do just this, has to follow the guidelines and every other duties, because I don't think you can put it on somebody that has a lot of other duties. So that's your board decision, is if you're going to hire Tony solely as doing CVRF from this period to this period. And, and Christy did say we can pay her salary. Then you need to do that. And then we've got to figure out the mechanics of how many hours or what all you're actually going to do with that. And then we move forward. As for what happens if you hire for that, what you guys are going to do for public health and those public health grants.
Well,
And I
that's-
think that's a discussion you guys, the board has to discuss and see, but I think right now the topic is Tony going to do this, and is it a full-time job, and then you go from there. I don't know how you're going to get around it because you're opening up more vacancies downstairs and everything else, but if you really want to go with getting all as much money and getting it out to the communities, that's what it's going to take.
Yes.
And so I think that's the point you're trying to get. And as long as we haven't applied for anything else, I don't think any revenues, first of all, you find out if the revenues came in, and I don't think we've gotten any revenues
Not
off any of
funny.
the other programs.
My understanding is we started out with the FEMA with the assumption that all of these things would be reimbursed by FEMA. And then we went to the CVRF, but I'm not sure that anything was actually submitted to FEMA.
And is there a contract or even any information on the FEMA one?
No, we've just got she did the original webinars, and attended that, but nothing's been
You've never-
submitted.
you've never Contracted with FEMA, we will provide these services and you'll reimburse us for this. Like the
No.
CVR, you have a letter in here saying,
Yes.
yes, you're approved, you can do this. As long as you do it within the guidelines.
I
That's what
think
can find
We have
out.
an anticipated connection to FEMA in the future. So
And
that's not
that's
been,
kind of been the purpose of declaring and extending the emergency disaster declaration, which will expire on September 16th. And then I think at that point, not to change subjects at all, but at that point, there will need to be a conversation about whether it's even important to continue that declaration if we're going to be largely relying upon CVRF funding. It seems to me that there is more of an avenue to receive reimbursement and potentially quicker than from FEMA through the CVRF. And if you were to hire somebody to solely administer the CVRF grant or whatever funds come in from DOLA, then I think you would accomplish what you're trying to accomplish in terms of reimbursement and avoid any possible double dipping if you're actually say you had to apply for something through FEMA or whatever. So
so we're set up with FEMA, so we can when
Right.
the time comes. We just we haven't submitted anything, and it's not actually open at this point.
Once
for us
again,
to
I'm
do
gonna go, we're back to FEMA, CVRF as a binary option. We don't know what's in between right now. But the sense was there was something in between. CVRF showed up late. It was like the second tranche of money that came through. And it had to do with the governor. Okay? And how he had
Have any
originally
idea.
allocated the monies, and remember the big counties got the money and the little counties were left out. And this was how they were dealing with it out of that particular tranche of money. But there were other programs, and I'm waiting for somebody to say,
There
This is-
were the ones through public health
We have a number
that
of public
apply,
health,
that
yes.
would cover salaries and wages of people who had
And
worked
we
on
have
COVID.
supplies through there. But I'm honestly unaware of anything else that has been set
okay, well, how
aside
do
for
we become
counties.
aware? Who do we talk to? Because payroll protection was under one of them.
But
Okay?
that didn't
But that
affect
one-
the
That's
county.
not us.
I don't care if it, I'm just saying there were other programs. Excuse me for losing my
Yeah.
patience here. It's not just FEMA and or CVRF. There was a whole bunch of stuff in between, and a lot of them duplicated efforts. I don't know what there was. You've got an ELD grant that we learned about late in the game, not because of you. Paul Wertz mentioned it to us.
Right.
He didn't tell us any of the terms and conditions until his last day on the job. Okay, $300 and some thousand.
Right.
Okay, that could be spent a certain way.
Through
But-
public health, correct.
I don't care. It was money that came from these programs. Through whatever, it's federal money. It's all flowing down from federal money.
Sure.
Okay, and it may be going to the state and different entities in the state like OEdit, or it could be through CDPHE. It could be through anybody at the state where this money has been spread out and delegated for certain purposes. But somewhere, somebody has the information that I'm asking for is how many grants are out there and what are they for?
would anyone at CCI know the answer to that?
With who?
CCI?
They would be helpful. The CDPHE would be helpful. OEdit would be helpful. The Small Business Administration would be helpful. The banks would be helpful. It's a matter of figuring it out. And I was frustrated from day one because nobody's tracking this. I was trying to, and I kept running into this kind of conversation. I'm sorry. And it was like, I can see where this is going. And I told you before when the CVRF money came down that it was going to be a piñata once people figured out what it could be used for. You took the bat away until we get an answer on constitutionality of how we. distribute
And I
those
will
funds.
say that some counties are looking at that constitutional issue and just saying, we're gonna do it anyway, because no one ever contemplated, what it would Gene, the world's check engine light coming on, and
Right.
and so some counties are just taking the position of, we're gonna disregard the Constitution and we're just
The
gonna
state
push forward.
constitution.
The state constitution, we're gonna push forward and identify that this is for a public purpose because of COVID
Right.
and do it very generally. I'm a more risk averse type of person, and my advice is always gonna be to err on the side of caution and not bite off more than we can chew in terms of administering this and paying this out, because I'm the last person who knows what is in our reserves or in our general fund, and that we actually would have to give to businesses or municipalities or whatever. And while I don't want to have money go to waste any more than anybody else, I also don't want the county to be on the hook for anything. And so that's my
primary concern is that we don't pay something out that we can't be reimbursed. And then when social services needs $300,000 because they're
Right.
overspending child welfare, that money doesn't exist. And then what do we do?
Exactly. It's a federal program passed through the state, and we're a pass-through entity also. Okay, now, where in there does the state, someplace in there it may have in the state constitution chokes it down and says you can't do it. You cannot take this federal money and hand it to this purpose. Now, I know in the past that federal money has come down, and oftentimes they use like the Council of Governments, the COG, to act as the transfer agency. So it's not really a municipal government. And they use it as the pass-through. And that's part of what I was trying to get at to begin with. How can we do this? I didn't know about the constitutional prohibition.
So, and with other grants that may be out there that I don't know of, you know, a COG or something like that might be eligible. With the CBRF specifically, it's not, because we are the one who is contracted with DOLA and only the county to receive the $966,000 that has been allocated to this county and the municipalities. And I think where the Constitution chokes it down is at that initial payout, since those are our funds and they're not yet federal funds because they haven't been reimbursed by DOLA.
So the funds have to be spent before we can reimburse for them, but the funds are going to be spent by the final applicant. So we will get that request, we'll put it in to the reimbursement through DOLA. We'll get our check, we'll cut the check to the business.
I think it has, what Christy June said, it has to happen the other way around.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have to cut the check to the business.
And then we
go ahead
reimburse
and-
our
Yeah.
expense.
They bring us the thing, we have
That's
the
where the
option.
liability issue really is.
That's right. How do we get an answer? We're not gonna get anywhere with it today without that.
The constitutional question?
Well, we need to get.
That'll be your
we-
choice.
We need to figure out what we're gonna do if we're gonna develop a task force now, because this is a lot of money that could help a lot of people in our community. And we're setting on $1 million, trying to figure out what we're gonna do. We need to get some definite answers, whether it's the legality parts of it or whether it's a distribution, but
And no assumptions.
yeah.
We need hard facts.
I just think there's too many people out there that are certain that this could be helping, so.
Okay,
So I'm actually going to reach out, if you okay with that, to the Arapahoe County attorney, who has some ideas on the constitutionality and how to make that work.
And
figure
they've
out-
moved forward.
Yeah,
with
and figure
their
out what it is that
process.
we can potentially do and how minds that are greater than mine are contemplating that public purpose.
if you can do that, I can work through the DRG because that's the board I'm on and the COG and figure out what's going on there. And they'll have a sense of how other counties are handling it. And they'll have access into that world. I can do that. In the meantime, we ought to, if we're gonna hire somebody, if we're gonna hire them from outside,
Yeah, what are you gonna do on that? Yeah.
if we're gonna do that, we need to make a decision on, yep, we're gonna advertise a job, we wanna get somebody in here, or we're gonna rent an accountant. I don't care what, to come in and run the program. But we need to make that decision before the 16th of September, which means today. And if we are gonna do that, we know we're covered on that end of it.
Yeah, I mean, you also have the ability to have a discussion by way of a work session or whatever, and then call a special meeting if necessary to make that decision. And then just as I'm sitting here and thinking about whether that needs to be published, I don't really think actually it would, because, or there would need to be an RFP, because I don't know what the anticipated salary is, but I think for that service, it wouldn't necessarily be required if you already have somebody in-house or in mind who would be able to administer that, because it essentially would be a new position that you'd be creating.
Okay, I'm wondering if, for some reason, my mind is going to DSS. If there is any way to come up with evidence that DSS costs have increased because of COVID, especially since we were talking about, increased cost, decreased funding. If there's, because that would, it doesn't matter what of our departments, as long as it was something new because of COVID.
As long as the expense is going to be something new. So the loss
Right.
of revenue at the county level is a different question. So just by losing the revenue, we
Doesn't
can't make up for
Right.
that.
But if you
But
have
we can
increased
reimburse for-
expenses.
That takes you back to the
Actual
South Dakota
expenses.
question, can you fund the state police out of COVID?
If you have
Okay,
actual
and that's-
expenses that are
that'll
COVID
end up-
related.
If they haven't resolved, it'll end up in the courts. But Suzanne, if we had to have somebody right now, how do we get somebody?
Well,
to
normally
take-
the policy's been, we advertise and open it up. But then, you're looking at probably 2 to 3 weeks minimum, even on that, and what guidelines and what the paycheck is or stuff.
Could we do it on contract?
Yeah, I think the way, when Christy talked to me, she says as long as a person is assigned only for that and doing nothing else, she felt very comfortable that it was allowable in this pot of money. She says, because once the program's over, nobody was getting paid to operate this program beforehand. Once it's over, and they don't have a job, that person's salary goes away. She says it is a direct cost of running this program.
So 4-month contract, or perhaps 5 if we have tail work in
Well, you'll have
January.
tail work in January.
But if we were to go out right now and contract with somebody, I don't know who, I don't even know where the temp agencies are that would provide somebody for this, or just somebody that we know of that would be willing to do it. If we could do that right now, we wouldn't have to mess around the 2 week of this and applications and what
How
have
are you
you.
gonna get that out? You'll have to advertise, and I don't know how you get it out. You're probably in the newspapers and stuff like that.
Do we have to advertise it?
Well, that has been the policy. I don't think you would be required to, but we don't have a procurement policy for services that I'm aware of that has ever been adopted. So I don't think we are bound to that particular requirement. It's always cleaner if you do. But in this particular instance, because of the need to get something going, like I said, if there is somebody who's already in mind or could come in and start up on day one, I think that would be an acceptable practice. And given the amount of money that we're talking to administer between now and it's really through March of next year, right?
No,
Or
it's
It
December.
has to be December 30th.
It's December 30th, but I think there's still going to be stuff that carries over. And I think that was at least in the collaborative agreement that I proposed. And, I didn't come up with that myself. There was a proposal that would go through March 21 so that you tie up any loose ends for the things that come in through the 31st. So
We
this
couldn't pay the
position's not going to end on December 31st. That's the date that things
We
have to
couldn't
be
pay
paid
them out of this. So even if they do some of that follow-up work in January, we're gonna have to find another source to fund that. That final expense needs to be done by December 30th.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the
I see
service
what you're-
wasn't provided.
I see what you're saying there. So,
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I don't think that you would absolutely have to publish. That has been the practice. That's always the safest thing.
If we don't have to, then we don't have to.
No, this is extended circumstances. I mean, how often are you gonna have a 4-month window to get all this money, and it has to be spent and
And you're
documented.
going to spend a month of that
Trying
advertising
to,
in that.
or 6 weeks trying to get it. And we've already
So if we can
advertised.
hire somebody right now, do we even have a desk where they can sit? Or can it be somebody who has an office downtown and we're contracting with
And
them to
we're
do it?
working remotely, and they just have to have a timesheet, mileage. I mean, if you're gonna pay mileage for them to do it, and all these things you guys need to sit down and talk about. And what's the maximum? Most grants, you are not allowed to spend more than 10%, and for administration of any type, and that includes everything. And so
That's where an RFP would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll spend, the money will be up in Denver's bank account by the time we get all this figured out. 'Cause that's where it's going
That's
back.
exactly what they're banking on.
Right.
That's
So I think
exactly
we
what
can,
they're
well,
doing.
other counties have done it. They just took the bull by the horn and said, we'll just take the fight when it comes. And I can guarantee you the congressmen are not going to sit there and let these municipalities swing on a rope out here as long as we were functioning in a reasonable fashion. And this will probably get extended depending on what happens with COVID. But we can't bank on that. But the HEALS Act is designed to do that, but I don't know if it'll ever make it through before the election. But whether they do or not, we know we got until December. We need somebody to do it. We don't have the capacity in-house to do this and everything else we have to do. It would seem to me that we just bite the bullet, contract with an accounting firm, contract, I don't care. If anybody can think of anybody. And say, get them on the property, and we know we can at least pay them to go get the answers for us. Right?
Okay, that's a reasonable suggestion.
Or if we could do something with Kimberly, that
I
WSB.
think that would mess up your audit.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
don't
think you
want to cross that line.
Mess up your audit.
Well, if they administer your funds, they can't do your
They
audit.
can't do your audit.
But this is a standalone fund thing, it's CBRF.
No, you're
No.
still on, you're signed up that
Because
you're,
it's going back to
you're
it,
doing it. And it's coming through
But
the
who knows?
operation.
I don't know who else is out there, but I'm sure there might be somebody that'd like to earn a little Christmas money over the next few months. And, you know, we're talking probably a fairly significant paycheck for that period of time. As long as it's reasonable and prudent. So what can we do right now to move this down the road? All the brainiacs at that end of the table.
Well, Suzanne, Benton, do you have any ideas in your head of people who, or would, like Dennis, Hunt, or somebody like that have suggestions as to who might be able to, that we could headhunt?
Go hire Lyle Hood, see if he'll do it.
Who?
Lyle Hood, retired from WSB. There's somebody out there. I don't know. I haven't talked to Lyle in years. I don't even know if he's still in the country.
That's not even remotely in my area of expertise, so I'm of no use there, but I would think that somebody who's got obviously strong accounting background and preferably some understanding of municipalities and government would and how they spend money.
I have a couple of names we need to talk about them before we do them. And I think either one of them probably pretty good.
Why don't we do a list of names? Or, well, if we can make a decision that we're going to do something, make that decision, then we can, based on that, come up with our plan, how to get somebody in position to manage this. And we could probably have something done by, I bet you we could have something done by this time next week in terms of a plan.
Do you, you know, the day's running long and we still have a lot of things to make decisions on. Do you want to just right now say, okay, we're going to have another work session and we come up with the names and a RFP or whatever to that, the people that you might think and put it out. And if it's in-house, outside, we put them out and give them a short period of time to reapply. I mean, you can't go more than a couple of weeks on this. I mean,
Well, could we make a decision today to at least have an approach that we are going to?
That's what I'm saying.
Right now,
To
today.
begin a search process.
Yes.
And if you're okay with me, you know, would be a good research or a resource is asking Jody Kern, who has all of her accounting friends who might know if somebody would be really good for her. Are you okay with me?
Absolutely. I am. I mean, we got two other commissioners here, but we could sit here and, as Gene says, talk it to death.
Yeah, that's the thing that scared me about this more than anything is that we're going to sit here and worry ourselves over all this stuff and not get anything done to help the people. We need to get the money out there as safely as we can for the county, but get it out there as efficiently as we can too.
So you're going to talk to Jody and get maybe a list. You have a couple of names. I can ask around. I don't have anybody on the top of my head. I just threw that name out because I knew it was a retired accountant.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, Tony has started putting things together and stuff, so I think you open it up to anybody that wants to do it, you know, wants to put in too. Even in-house, if they just want to leave whatever job they're at and just do
If
this.
we can afford to sacrifice them in that position.
Yeah, and that's why, and there's a lot of things that have been floating between Ryan and Tony, and I think Trish, and that's what I've been trying to get my hands on, and we still, today, were you going to bring up the, and try to see if the commissioners would okay this intergovernmental agreement with the towns?
I was gonna, so I had proposed that. It's been 2 weeks since I originally proposed the cooperative agreement with the towns. I'm sure you saw Tony's comment regarding, I think it was F, and attachment 2 or exhibit 2. And I don't necessarily disagree with Tony's suggestion, and I have no objection to that suggestion. My only caveat would be that I think in so much as that relates to a breakdown by municipality, I don't know that you necessarily need to adhere to a strict Monte Vista gets this, Del Mar gets that. But I think it might be a good idea, since you have a total of $966,000, you probably want to have some kind of fair and equitable guideline to give the municipalities so that, you know, the city of Monte Vista doesn't somehow, or businesses or whatever within, it sounds like the municipalities aren't going to deal with businesses, so maybe that's a non-issue, but the city of Monte Vista doesn't somehow go out and spend $400,000 and Belmore $400,000 and Southwark $400,000. And then the next thing you know, you're $1.2 million into this and you're not going to be reimbursed and you're going to be $300,000 short. So that was kind of my thought process, is that you at least establish some kind of guideline. The reality may very well be that you don't even come close to it touching that $966,000 because we can't figure out how to spend the money. But I didn't want to get us into a position where the municipalities, on a theory of reliance, go out and spend gobs of money somehow. I'm not sure how they would do that, but spend gobs of money and then submit it to us and expect to be reimbursed.
Well, remember, part of the condition was if we don't approve it, they can't spend it. And two, if they present a proposal to us and we do advance them, or however that was, and it turns out to be denied, they pay for it.
Right, and that is true, but that's why I said I don't, just out of respect for our municipal partners and the municipalities themselves, I don't think we want, I think it would be good if there was an upfront conversation or something spelled out as to what the expectation would be. If that's overkill and it's absolutely unnecessary and unlikely to happen, then it may be nothing to worry about. I'm looking at it from a what if perspective so that the municipalities don't overspend and the county's relationship with municipalities isn't worsened because they won't be reimbursed by the county. Because I agree with you, they're going to spend the money first and then we're going to decide what we reimburse. But I don't think it's any better for the county to have the municipalities overspend themselves. Mm-hmm. That's my only thought process.
Well, so for right now, I would feel more comfortable if we had board approval of some specific action right now, whatever that looks like.
So what I heard was at least a general inclination by the board to start the search process for a grant administrator for the CVRF. And so if you want to maybe better articulate that by way of a motion, that would be a good idea.
I like it. So moved.
Okay, let's think about what we're trying to include in this. I mean, we don't make it over broad. I know when we're talking. We want we want the authorization to retain somebody under contract or whatever to manage the CVRF funds. What else do we want to accomplish right now?
As a separate issue, if you're so inclined, then you can take specific action with respect to the agreement. If it's to instruct me to modify the agreement to remove paragraph F and attachment B in accordance with the recommendation of Tony, I'm happy to do that. If you want to have me develop some kind of other guidance regarding how municipalities will allocate their expenditures, I can do that as well. But I do think that we need to get going on this collaborative agreement so that we have something in place so that concurrent with our efforts to find somebody to administer the grant, we're working with the towns and the city of Monte Vista to codify our agreement as to how the funds will be spent.
I would think if we could do something that we will do our best, or it's our intention to stay as close to this equitable distribution as we can, that's good for that. That makes sense to me. But if we're going to say that we're leaving those strict numbers in there, I don't want to set an expectation that Monte Vista thinks they spend this much either, that that's their responsibility.
Is that something that the board concurs with?
I think I like that.
Because that would respect that.
So what we're taking out is any reference to actual dollar amounts per municipality.
We're not guaranteeing that
Right.
we would spend so much on each
municipality. Yes, that conversation came up early on when we were talking about this, and the municipalities, none of them said they wanted a particular share.
Right.
Some counties took the easy way out and they just divvied it up based on population, not necessarily based on need. And so I would concur that we remove that language, but
And change it to basically as close to an equitable distribution as possible based on a percentage of the population
I wouldn't
breakdown.
even say that.
You just want it removed?
I would
I
say,
think that would be fine. We've had those conversations with them,
Okay.
so they're aware of how we would want to prioritize funding.
you know, they're dumping this on us. They could have just as easily stepped up and says, we want our share of the money and we'll manage it ourselves. They dumped it on us, and it's kind of like the indigent burials. Okay. If you're not going to do it, you don't get a choice.
Okay, so just so I have a clear consensus of what the board wants, basically get rid of paragraph F altogether.
If that's what it is, I don't have it in front of me. I can't
Can you read us what paragraph F
Paragraph
is?
F says CARES Act funds are allocated based on the percentage of the population in a given state that resides in the jurisdiction requesting funding from the federal government. The county is similarly allocating CARES Act funds based on the percentage of the county population residing in its cities and towns, as well as in the unincorporated portions of the county. Population numbers are determined from the most recent published numbers, 2018, from the State Demography Office within the Department of Local Affairs. The spreadsheet attached as Exhibit B and incorporated herein shows the maximum amount of CARES Act funds available to each Rio Grande County municipality and unincorporated Rio Grande County pursuant to population.
Okay, and so Tony, how would you like to hear that worded where it wouldn't be so limiting, but where it would also, because I think Ryan's concern is also valid about everybody saying, well, I'm going to spend $500,000 of this.
So I think however you decide to administer it, as far as the agreement, if we strike that completely, and that is our agreement with the municipalities, I think that's solid. And if we do a similar setup where we're not just having a pile of receipts from the municipalities either, we're actually having them upload documents and keeping track of that, we can then in real time monitor their expenses.
Is there something in that agreement that talks about how frequently the municipalities are required to submit their invoices? Because I'm thinking if they're required to submit them monthly, then you can keep more of a running total, and you can say, okay, wait, stop.
We've only got 4 months.
So
I
there
don't
is
know.
nothing, to answer the first question, there's nothing in the agreement that already states that. I don't think that that's a bad suggestion to say will be submitted monthly and by whatever day of the month to basically keep a real-time running tally on what each municipality is spending.
So December 15th or December 31st, what do we do?
December 30th, if there are additional funds. Actually, they want us to have all of our funds planned out, they being DOLA, by November 30th. November 30th. So if we're going to have to communicate with anybody who we're working with that we need an actual real plan, and we know that those receipts are coming for that last month because they want to have those funds freed November 30th. So
Read November 30th meeting.
So if we're not going to spend a certain amount by
The state
the
wants to
end,
know
they
what
want
they're
to
gonna
get
get
back. They want to have it back at that time.
Okay.
So we need to have a really solid.
So we basically have 2
Right,
months to
we're-
spend this money.
We will be the last deadline on the application if we went forward how I proposed. Somebody else closed theirs on the 24th
Of
this month,
they're done?
August. They're done.
Who was that?
It was one of the cities in Arapahoe County. I think it was Centennial.
And so they closed for any
Their
business that would
applications
were
wanted
done.
to.
So they opened and closed, so we're still sitting here talking about it.
Yep.
So I will make those changes and then I'll have this for the meeting on the 16th. If not, unless you want it, I mean, I'll have it in advance of the meeting on the 16th unless you want it sooner or a special meeting or whatever. But I'll modify that language so that we can hopefully get something to propose to the towns. And
But I think we need to get that to the towns very soon.
Because they won't be having meetings.
Well,
Are
the
we reimbursing?
towns, your suggestion isn't the towns.
There are multiple
Part-
parts to what
but
I'm
your suggestion,
proposing.
the bulk of the money would end up going
Businesses.
Businesses.
And
Yes.
your suggestion was organizations, chambers of commerce, things of that nature.
Those would be, we'd have 4 open. So the intent would be basically that each town's chamber would organize a plan for their location. And then the Economic Development Council would likely organize one too. That's really who we're tailoring this to, so they can have a larger plan for the municipality. And then these individuals would be for individual businesses, and we would be reaching out, and Forrest has already assured us that he'll work with all of the businesses who are attached to the Economic Development Council to get them, to support them through this application. He's the
What's
president
Economic
on that
Development Council?
Upper Rio Grande Economic Development.
Urge.
Yeah. So
Development group, okay.
people are already ready and willing to help with this process, and it's going to be a bureaucratic process. We're receiving federal funds.
Yes, we want to make it,
It's going to be complicated. We just
we
need
need
to
to make
find
it
partners to
easy
help.
because you're talking $20,000. That's a nominal amount. We're dealing with the $5,000 mini grants, for instance, and they're almost not worth it.
And if it's the amounts that we're talking about, then let's change that and we can go forward with a higher
Well,
minimum or higher
Two
maximum.
things, we have a motion on the table.
Right.
We haven't done anything with it yet, so I would like to rescind that motion to where we can reword it.
Okay.
And incorporate these. Second thing is, I think we need to set a special meeting for next Wednesday, a Board County Commissioners meeting. And that would be my motion to do that so that we can come back in and we will have this resolution from Ryan for this thing, and we can make that final decision next Wednesday. We could put all this stuff together maybe and make that where we could do both the resolution and finalize the part of
There'd
it.
be a memorandum of
The
agreement.
memorandum agreement, I'm sorry, yes.
But the motion to hire or authorize the hiring of a specialist to come in and manage this is effective right now, right?
That's what I'm saying. I rescinded it, so we need
Right.
to restate it.
So there's
Okay,
that
so
would be that
is-
motion.
So you rescinded that motion, and so are you just making this a much larger motion? Or should that be two
That's why I had
motions?
my fingers. It's 2 different places.
Okay,
I want to do the memorandum, I call it resolution, I'm sorry, it was a memorandum of understanding. I like to make a motion, we have Ryan get that finalized and we can approve it and sign it on special board meeting on September 2nd.
okay, I'll second that.
Got the motion, got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
September 2nd, next week.
Next week.
However, the plan is to just have that on the agenda, or are we gonna have a whole day's worth of agenda?
Well, we're not done yet.
Let's see what you want to table off of mine.
Now, Suzanne's got a pile over here that's probably 3 meetings worth.
No.
Secondly, you were gonna do,
Second motion, I'd like to make a motion, we go ahead and get the process started to hire a full-time CBRF grant administrator. Thank you.
effective immediately, that will start this process. And it will authorize the administrator to make that hire, or how do you want to do that?
I think you guys need to be involved in this one. And if I don't know how fast we can get it out, but if Ryan can, if Jody has she can reaches out and somebody say, contact the office here and that we're interested, send a letter and what your expertise is, whatever we have. I think you can go match past September 2nd if you don't have anybody put in.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we need to have a name. We need to be ready to go by next Wednesday.
Okay, no later than
Do we,
Wednesday.
okay, if
Yeah,
we
no,
authorize
sorry.
that hire today, do we need to validate it or approve it at the next meeting? I wouldn't think so.
I would call a special meeting on Monday. In fact, I would just have a meeting scheduled for Monday in case. So we can do it.
Monday and Wednesday both?
I don't care.
So Monday I have a district court docket. The afternoon would be better for me if you're gonna call a
If we,
special meeting.
I just have it as a placeholder so we can respond quickly. That's what I'm thinking. We may not need it, and if we don't need it, we can cancel it. But we want to have a meeting where we can take action. And I don't know if any of this stuff that we're going to be discussing falls into confidentiality, because maybe I know of a business that needs help, well, we can't talk about it in public or something like that. So I don't know how to structure it, leave it to the attorney and the administrator to do it, but I would suggest we put a placeholder in there. That gives us a couple of days to make the people make the phone calls. and see if we got something really available. And then we can have our proposals, maybe even some names. Is that, I mean, I don't want to interfere there. Monday afternoon, you know that the judge is going to call you back in the afternoon.
No, we'll be done. We'll be done at, that's a 7-item docket. It's not that bad. And should be over by 11:30.
Okay, so after lunch, we'll meet.
1:30.
1:30 is good. That gives me time if that runs over a little bit to at least grab something to eat and not be hangry.
And you would set that as a special?
Yeah, we'll set it as a special, and if we have to slop into an executive session, whatever language has to be included in the notice for that.
And Wednesday was set as a regular Board of County Commissioners meeting for,
No, it would still be a special because it's not on our,
oh,
on our
special,
regular.
okay.
So the first motion is going to be amended to include Monday afternoon and also September 2nd,
But only if necessary.
if necessary.
Was that the first motion?
Yeah,
Or was
it
it
said
the-
September 2nd was to have a special meeting.
Okay, did we do the motion on the striking paragraph F?
I don't believe you did.
Okay, so we've got the first motion for September 2nd. One, okay, let's do it.
But that one's been approved.
Mhm.
That one's
Correct, okay.
Okay, the next motion for striking paragraph F,
Well,
or do you need?
I don't think you need to take formal action on that. What I will do is I'm hearing from the board that that's the consensus, that we need to rework that. What I will propose is that the towns and city of Monte Vista will submit monthly invoicing. If the 10th of the month seems like a reasonable date by which they should submit those invoices, then that's what I'll propose unless somebody has a better suggestion.
Well, and then we got a
Yeah.
cutoff date to think about,
That November 30th.
November 30th, and you're comfortable that that date would work?
So we need to have all of that money for December planned. If something is coming in, we need to be absolutely certain that December is settled. We're not going to give any awards for businesses or anything like that in the month of December, nothing new. So that 10th invoice date would work. And then I think that final invoice, even though we could pay out till December 30th, I think we want to set that final to be no later than either December 10th or 15th, because we need to clear our books before that 30th date for anything coming into us. So their final wouldn't be the 30th, it would be that 10th
Of,
December. Absolute final for any
that's the
invoicing to
absolute final
us.
for any paperwork coming in at that point.
From anybody else to us, yeah.
So, is that part of your?
Yep, I'm good.
Good?
Yeah.
All right, so we don't need a motion on that. We need a motion on setting them, or we can just call a special meeting, right? We don't have to make motions on it. And perhaps an executive session potentially on the August 31st.
To discuss personnel matters, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it might be a
Potentially.
personal or.
As
Yeah,
far as
and-
the hiring,
Yeah, and I don't think we
Work on it.
need to decide that now, as long as we're in the context of a special meeting, you can make a motion at any time to go into executive session for the purpose of personnel matters. We can put it on the agenda if you want. We
I
have
don't
been
care
putting it
as
on the
long as
agenda.
it's legal.
okay, the meeting
Biggest thing
on
is posting
Monday,
notice.
what, remind me again what the purpose was on Monday?
That's gonna
The
be.
hiring of the
Yes.
person?
Yeah, it's a placeholder for that purpose.
And approving this, right?
Yes, sorry.
Approving the MOU, yeah. And then, I mean, I don't know if we'll have names, that's 2 business days from now.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll
But that
see.
way we've got it if we do. And if we don't need to, we can let it slide.
Okay. and
Anything
then-
else for that meeting?
God, I hope.
I agree.
and the-
You're gonna make a couple.
Okay,
calls.
we never had Dan's telling me we never had a second on the motion for Monday's meeting,
For hiring
for
to
the
starting to hire
meeting
process.
to start the hiring process?
yeah.
That was
okay.
that was the one I was.
Who made that motion?
Gina
Okay.
did.
I would second that.
Okay. got a
Oh, is
motion?
that the one you withdrew? And
No,
then turned it
no,
into something
I
else?
reset it,
Okay.
but we just talked about 300-400 things.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay,
Okay.
motion and a second to authorize
To start the hiring process.
to start the hiring process. Hate to even use the term hiring, but contracting
Or-
process for the purposes of hiring or recruitment process for the purpose of finding a contractor to manage the CBRF money effective immediately.
Okay.
Does that say it?
And the meeting on Wednesday was,
This is a
Yes.
single motion
Oh.
here.
and that was, okay, go ahead.
Motion and a second?
Yes.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
I,
All right, do you have that one, Deanne? Solid, okay. Now, do we have a third motion for anything else? Or a fourth motion?
and the meeting on Wednesday is,
Yes, if you've got everything done on Monday, you probably don't need Wednesday.
We can always
We
cancel.
wanted to set, we set
It's a
Wednesday to
placeholder.
start with only because we
Okay.
didn't think we'd be there, so it's.
okay.
It's just placeholders right now. So we do have a meeting set for the second, That's done. Okay, so we got that. Sorry, Tony, for kind of hijacking you again, but there's some.
Hopefully by Monday, we'll have some direction and then we can get moving on this.
And
all
are
the
these
particular-
meetings at 9 or at 10?
The one on
Monday
Monday's
is
1:30.
1:30,
Oh, yes. And the one on Wednesday?
9. If we have to have it, let's have it as early as we can then. There we go.
Okay, I'm sorry, Tony.
I think it's appropriate to this conversation that we really do need guidance and clarification around what I'm going to do with my days. And that is changing, and that will, I need that to come up so that things aren't falling through and that becomes a thing that falls on me. I don't want that. I don't need it. I'm not comfortable with the amount of things that are going to be dependent on me right now. So I'm not sure what the appropriate venue is, but we do need to, I would really respectfully like for all of you to take a little bit of time for that for me.
I am going to say that if we are looking at hiring somebody to do the CDRF,
Mhm.
that your focus is on public health and on other grants. That's my opinion.
And that includes all the emergency management, homeland security, all the other ones that are run through county general.
That was our original agreement, but whenever you took on public health, did that alter that agreement in your mind or your capacity to?
Absolutely. Public health is a whole job. That is.
Right.
There are a number of staff under that position. We're in the middle of a pandemic. So public health is a pretty big issue. So I also would need to figure out a place where I'm comfortable with the responsibilities that you're asking me to do as much as you're comfortable that all of your needs are met, because I am an actual person and that I
Well,
don't.
we need to set this for a discussion where we can sit down and discuss this. And this is a topic we gotta do. We need to set a date.
Well, and we need to do something fairly soon. You're gonna burn out on us, or things are gonna fall through the crack. I can see where you're headed with this. But just as a reminder, the history on this is we had an issue with the grants downstairs.
Right.
You were taking care of that whenever Emily left, Paul Wirtz was in. Then Trish had suggested that we moved you to admin.
Right.
Away from public health, where you were handling all the grants.
Mhm.
Now, I knew at the time, and I'm sure you knew at the time, there were grants out there that hadn't been on your desk or weren't even crossing these desks.
Right.
Doesn't matter what they were. It was a bunch of different departments, different grants. But you were going to handle the grants. Then when Paul left, the suggestion was made to us through Trish, and I think you even said it, that you would transition over, handle the public health, but you were being TD-wide, if you will, from this office downstairs, temporarily assigned on an interim basis, but that your duties hadn't changed up here. Now, there's an overload starting to build into the system at that point. And we tended to think of public health grants because they were the ones that appeared to have some problems.
Right.
Okay, so we were focused on that. And then we had the personnel changes up here. In the meantime, the CBRF thing started emerging as we were going along. And there was no clear assignment of those duties. You ended up with it on your desk because you were the grants person.
Right.
But it was your desk is downstairs in public health. And so you couldn't do it all, not effectively. And it became apparent that we're going to do the CVRF, that's a full-time job done right. So we needed to hire somebody for that. The suggestion was made early on that we do something like that. So this thing had a history. It wasn't like we just sat here and just stuff on our tongue. And so now we're having to roll back on this. You're coming to us with a concern. I appreciate you coming now with that concern. And I would ask that you make a recommendation to us so you can tell us, unlike one of the other public health directors did, just came in and says, I need all this stuff right now. We asked for, okay, put it in a list. Give us the list, prioritize the list. This has to happen, this can wait. And then that person quit before the list was ever provided. And so if you could do that.
So I'm prepared to let you guys know what my comfort is, but I'm not prepared to do that necessarily with all of our fans.
No, that gets into a personnel discussion anyhow.
So it gets into a personnel discussion if we're specifically talking about Tony's involvement in one or both departments, admin and public health. If you're talking about the office of the public health director specifically, or generally, excuse me, or something about a grants administrator in that position generally, it doesn't necessarily fall into the category of personnel matters. And so if we're talking about specifics, then yes, those should go into an executive session.
She's coming to us.
And I think that is what she's proposing, is that we talk about her involvement in those positions.
And I think that part is fine. I guess before you do, I had a general question. Is the public health position right now an interim director, or is that an appointment that hasn't yet been codified by way of resolution for an appointment to the director of public health?
Remember, you were going to look at the waivers.
Yeah, I qualify for education. They would do a training waiver for me on the years of involvement with public health.
And has a waiver been granted to?
No,
Okay.
So they won't do the waiver process with an interim director.
Okay.
So we have that conversation to have.
But basically what you're saying is they have said that you do qualify. And so if you were the director and not an interim director, that they would give a waiver?
We would then have to apply as the Board of Health. You would have to apply for that waiver for your hiring decision, but you'd have to hire the person.
But they have already said that you would qualify.
With my education.
Okay. And who would that go through?
So most of my conversations have been with CALFO, the Colorado Public Health Agency organization, and OPPI, the Office of OPPI, is the actual CDPHE office that would determine the waiver.
If we can get a specific contact, and I'm not asking you to provide that in the context of this meeting, but if you can get us a specific contact where that would go. That was just one of my questions, is whether we're still functioning as an interim director. It sounds like we are. And if so, if that was going to be an advertised position for that particular, to fill that vacancy.
We are advertising currently.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to let you guys know, today, as of this morning, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 interests. Only one so far has actually sent in a completed application, but we do have 6 that said they were interested, and I told them they had to file the app. And I didn't know if you were still interested in it or not, but I don't have yours. I just have a former one. So I didn't know if it was still one to be considered or not, but yeah, there's.
That's for
public health director.
Public health director.
So then, was your request for an executive session on personnel matters for today's meeting, or as soon as can be held?
I think soon would be
Monday.
Good.
Monday work.
Yeah, I think it will. I would like to have a conversation that involves what my time, the CVRF and all of the grants, and I think things need to move quickly, and I don't want to push you all on anything, but this was a request that I made at our last meeting as well, that we sit down and talk about my responsibilities.
I'm kind of wondering, what do we have? You said about 45 minutes that you have in the executive session a day. I would think that it would be appropriate.
Yes, Suzanne Benton's also.
And Suzanne, did you have something for executive session?
No, but for the meeting today.
Right, but I'm wondering if
I don't-
it would be more prudent to deal with this today, and so it's off the table, and Tony can get on
Can I
with her
suggest
life.
that you do that on Monday?
It won't be off the table today. I would be surprised.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think what else, but other than things you might have had on for executive session. Most of this other stuff is just, you do it, who does it for my stuff for you today. So I don't know if you want to take it out. I don't know how you want to do the rest of the day because we're at 1 o'clock.
You know,
And I don't know if you were planning to spend the day or not. But I have a few things that if you could just, well.
I'm going to interject here. One is, you're brand new back on the job. There's stuff that you're having to work through and you need to talk to us about. We're going to have to think about what you're telling us right now in terms of time, demands on your time, your responsibilities and stuff like that. We haven't had, we're having a hard time focusing on one thing and saying, this is how we're going to handle it.
We're going to get it
This-
done.
We're gonna, and we're just getting random here. If you can give us till Monday, we'll schedule it for Monday afternoon. Specifically, and in executive session, I know last time I promised you something in an open meeting. I reneged. Okay, but Monday specifically, now we may have other things that we're talking about on Monday in executive session, depending on what comes down the pike. So if we block that out, is it okay for you guys?
It's fine.
Does that work?
I am still kind of thinking if we could have a very brief discussion in our executive session today as far as possibly what she would like, how she would like to see this going, and then we can think about, because I know that right now we don't have all the information
But
to analyze.
we've been hit with a ton of stuff that's all in our heads. If Tony has some thoughts, maybe she can put it in writing, what her concerns are. These are the areas I've got concerns. This is what I'm willing to do, not willing to do, this and that time, whatever. It can be confidential. It can come through the attorney. It can do whatever, so it's just not floating around out here, if that's what you want to do. But anything we do verbally right now it's going to be a tennis match back and forth right now with random things. I think. I mean, I don't know what you have for us, but I'm guessing that we're going to be having an issue there. And we're going to have, Ryan's got 45 minutes of executive session stuff for us today. He gets grumpy if he misses lunch. Suzanne Benton has stuff. Well, you do too. Yeah, I do
Got
too.
an applesauce in my office. We can get you a whole meal.
And I don't like managing meetings like this. I would prefer to take a break and do it, but I don't know everybody else's schedule. Ryan, what are you thinking?
I mean, I don't have anything else scheduled today, so if you're wanting to take a lunch break or do whatever, that's fine. I'm also prepared to just give you what I have in my executive session. I do think that the stuff that I have is fairly important. I need to apprise the board about it. I would like for Suzanne Benton to be there. But I can't imagine that it will take less than 45 minutes.
And most of my stuff is information or direction on various things. There's still a Summitville report. There's those kind of things. There's a request for financial study to be done for COVA, but it's through a guy out of Florida. I don't think we have the time to do it, but I wanted to bring it to you. It's just a lot of.
You asked about the all hazards contract. I thought
Yeah.
we signed that on the 12th. That was.
No.
Oh.
We did
The
not.
IGA with
No,
Alamosa?
MOU. The MOU with all the counties, right?
Okay.
No, it was just the IGA with Alamosa, and that is on our, because I put it on the agenda for the 12th, and John said he hadn't seen it, and so we couldn't sign it, but it was on our consent agenda today. So
We've
is
approved it today.
officially approved.
We just need
So
to
that's
sign
not.
it.
Okay.
I knew that was one of the questions that you had.
Yeah, on the MOU for all hazards in the
Did we
bylaw.
decide what we're doing by executive session for you? Are we gonna do it Monday afternoon?
And by that time, she can give you a list or have something prepared of what she wants or her concern.
What she wants to talk about at least, yeah. Whatever. I don't want to tell her.
So
what
that
she has to
means
write.
that officially that meeting on Monday is not a possible meeting, that makes it an official, or that now we are definitely having that meeting.
Does it matter if it's set up as special?
They're both gonna be special meetings.
Either one.
I thought my interpretation of Monday's meeting at least is that it was happening to discuss these things.
Cool.
And then Wednesday, if necessary, as a placeholder. That was my interpretation.
So if we're good with that, if we can do that, Tony. The question is, do we want to break for a half hour or something, get something to eat or not? Need a break?
No, I mean, to eating, no.
Yeah, we take a short break. Let's take a short, just,
I don't know, whatever, short meeting what?
oh, were you gonna get something?
I don't know if I'm gonna do it right now. I mean, we might go down to
I was gonna make a pot of coffee.
Just as good.
15, 20, 30, what do you want?
I don't care. I'm not doing anything.
Let's take 30 minutes.
30.
I'll be back.
We
here
convene here at
1:45.
1:45 or 1:47.
Yeah, you gotta
We can shut everything off here if we want, or however you want to do it. My bad, we died when we were going this.
Sorry. I can't even
That's
see
all.
for my own arm.
You're